Chapter 351, Receiving New Techniques, II. Li Yuanping leaned over to read the manual, initially joyful until he noticed a small note in ink at the end. Their expressions suddenly changed. Li Yunjiao narrowed his eyes as he said, recorded by Qi Mu from Zheiyun Immortal Mansion from Wei State of Central Plain. This is a legacy from Zheiyun Immortal Mansion from Wei State of Central Plain. Wei State, Li Yuanping echoed, puzzled. I've heard of the northern powers like Yan State and Zhao State, but I've never heard of Wei State, let alone this Zheiyun Immortal Mansion. There's actually an immortal sect in the north. Li Yunjiao carefully placed the wooden slip on the desk. His heart was racing as he murmured, maybe this Wei State is an ancient territory from centuries past. That would explain why we've never heard of it. 700 years ago, when Buddhism was still confined to Mobai, Taoist sects dominated the Central Plain. There were reportedly over 172 states. Wei could have been one of them. If that's true, then it makes sense for immortal sects to exist in the Wei State. Li Yunjiao had gotten this information from Xiao Giluan. After all, the Xiao family was an ancient immortal family with ancestors who hailed from the north. Naturally, they were more knowledgeable about the history of the north. In fact, they even had a few northern Dao techniques in their possession. However, Xiao Giluan was a concubine-born daughter of the direct lineage, with a status akin to those in the major sect of the Li family. Now that she had been married into the Li family, it was even more challenging for her to obtain such information. Li Yunjiao could barely contain his excitement while Li Yuanping was slightly taken aback by the revelation. He quickly connected the dots and said in a serious tone, "So, you mean to say that techniques similar to this nature might have already been lost? Doesn't that mean?" Before Li Yuanping could finish his sentence by saying, "Doesn't that mean we'll have a smooth ride ahead?" he was interrupted by Li Yunjiao's sigh. "Let's not rush to conclusions. We should verify if there's indeed still an immortal sect active up in the north," Li Yunjiao said firmly. Listening intently from the side, Li Zijai's eyes flickered with curiosity. He hurriedly interjected, "The younger brothers have just begun their cultivation journey, and they will take at least 10 years to reach the Qi cultivation realm. After I join the Azure Pond sect, I can investigate Wei State and the Zheiyun Immortal Mansion on behalf of our family." "Very well." Li Yunjiao praised, looking more at ease now. For years, the weight of Li Tongya's passing had burdened him, fearing he might fall short of his expectations. Now, with a clear direction, he felt uplifted. It's a shame Uncle Xian is from a branch of the Xiao family. Otherwise, Auntie could help us inquire more. Li Zijai remarked absent-mindedly, his excitement evident as he glanced at the tiny script on the wooden slip. However, Li Yunjiao's expression turned stern as he interrupted sharply, "Zhi'er." Li Zijai raised his head in surprise, noticing the fading smile on Li Yuanping's face as he gently explained, "Since your aunt has married into the Xiao family, she is now one of them. Asking her to do something like that would put her in a difficult position." Li Zijai, who had spent his childhood playing in the mountains, was extremely close to Li Qingxiao. Li Yuanping's words had taken him by surprise. "I've been thoughtless," he admitted. Li Yunjiao looked at him, then sighed. "Our family does not match theirs in status at present, having been a clan for just 3 generations. No matter how close we are as a family, we must tread carefully. We cannot impose undue burdens and end up souring familial ties." "I understand," Li Zijai responded, cupping his fist respectfully. Li Zijun listened attentively to their conversation, his handsome face betraying a pensive expression. Meanwhile, Li Yunjiao collected the wooden slips and glanced at Li Ziming, who was still scribbling furiously with sweat beading his forehead. Li Yunjiao was amused by such a sight and failed to suppress a chuckle. He walked up to the boy and asked warmly, "Why haven't you completed your writing yet?" Li Ziming, looking slightly flustered, gestured to the stack of meticulously written wooden slips. Carefully dipped his brush into ink and replied, "Everyone else's entries are so short, but mine turned out so long-winded." His complaint drew chuckles from Li Zijun and Li Zijai. Li Yunjiao peered closer and saw the title on the slip, Introduction to Alchemy. Alchemy. Li Yuanping and Li Yunjiao exchanged surprised glances. "How rare. This is the first time I've seen someone being bestowed an alchemy manual among the 100 arts of immortal cultivation," Li Yuanping remarked. As soon as he finished speaking those words, realization dawned on them. They simultaneously placed their hands on Li Ziming's body, one on his Qihai acupoint, the other on his throat. The Li family had never produced a skilled alchemist. After assessing Li Ziming for a moment, the two brothers had their suspicions. Eventually, Li Yunjiao chuckled and decided, "You can begin practicing with the manual. We'll send someone to the Xiao family to invite senior UNC over." Meanwhile, in Yi Mountain City at the southern border, a middle-aged man clad in leather armor stood silently atop the city wall, the biting cold wind whipping fiercely around him. His sharp eyebrows furrowed as he gazed down at the demon beasts gathering below him. His gray-black eyes, tired yet steady, betrayed no emotion. He raised the golden longbow in his hands, taking a deep breath before a radiant golden light condensed between his hands, swirling and forming a golden-white arrow. Take this, golden white brilliance gleamed in his eyes as the arrow streaked through the sky like a falling star, slicing through the air and leaving a trail of dazzling light in its wake. Whoosh! A massive eagle, as large as a house and soaring in the sky, emitted a cry so piercing that it could crack gold and shatter stone. It flapped its wings desperately, attempting to ascend, but it was too late to evade. Its shrill cry was abruptly silenced. Watching the eagle plummet into the distant mountain forest, Li Xuanfeng lowered his bow and straightened up. The glint in his eyes dimmed once more as he turned back toward the city, retrieving a wineskin from his chest pocket and taking a small sip. "Brother Feng, your archery skills have improved yet again," Fei Yi remarked. He was dressed in white as usual as he sat down beside him with his spear. "That demon beast was at the 7th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm, yet you shot it down with just one arrow. You're probably not far from reaching the Foundation Establishment realm, right?" he asked in a hushed tone. "Yes." Li Xuanfeng nodded and leaned his longbow against the wall, its weight creating a loud thud that startled the surrounding crowd. "I've reached the peak of Qi cultivation realm, and I am ready to pick a day to enter seclusion for the breakthrough," he announced, causing murmurs of approval and well wishes from those who were gathered around. Li Xuanfeng acknowledged them with a wave of his hand. Fei Yi smiled wryly and remarked, "Brother Feng, your talent is truly exceptional. If you were still on the lake, Yu Mugao and Yu Xiaogui would surely be troubled by your presence. It's a shame we're stuck in this hellhole, watching the Azure Pawn sect play games with the Demon King day in and day out. If we win, the demons we killed belong to the Azure Pawn sect. If we lose, we become the demons' food and nourishment. We started with 56 defenders on these walls, now we're down to just 15. Gambling for too long is bound to lead to losses," he continued. Li Xuanfeng chuckled in response. "You seem to fear death less and less now, to speak so openly and frankly about this." Fei Yi sighed wearily and said, "All of us are going to die sooner or later anyway. The Azure Pawn sect doesn't care what we think." Li Xuanfeng gazed into the distance as he took another sip of wine thoughtfully. "I heard that the Azure Pawn sect is gathering a group of formation masters to repair Yi Mountain City's formations," he asked. "Yes." At the mention of this, the group of people was filled with joy and anticipation. Fei Yi laughed out loud and continued, "It's been 10 years since we've been isolated from the outside world. Finally, someone is coming. I wonder how much the outside world has changed over these years." Chapter 352, Arrival of the Cloudliner I. The howling north wind was completely isolated outside the enclosed cabin of the Dawn Cloudliner. The wooden chairs on the Cloudliner were cushioned with brocade fabric and enchanted with spells, making them exceptionally comfortable. Yi Mountain City. Liu Changdi sank into the wooden chair as his gaze lingered on the majestic city below, feeling emotions stirring within him. He thought to himself, "In my previous life, I came to this place as an insignificant Qi cultivator of the 2nd heavenly layer. In this life, I have already reached the peak of the Qi cultivation realm." Looking at the ancient city before his eyes, the image of a golden longbow appeared in Liu Changdi's mind, causing him to frown as he was filled with deep confusion. There are more and more changes. Li Tanya killed Yu Xiaogui with his sword. This is another event that never happened in my previous life. Could the formation I set up for the Li family have changed everything? Liu Changdi was originally an ordinary cultivator, but with these memories, he had been living his life smoothly. Now everything had become unrecognizable, causing him to feel a fearful chill down his spine. In my previous life, after Li Tanya killed the Maha, he disappeared. The master monks of the Lotus Temple besieged Mount Lijiang. I had thought of saving them to make them owe me a favor. But now Li Tanya is still guarding the Li family, and the bald monks of the Lotus Temple seem to have become recluses. The Yu family not only failed to breach the Fei family's defense, but they also lost Yu Xiaogui. The situation on the lake is entirely different now. My past life's memories are no longer of much use. As the altitude continued to drop, he felt a sense of confusion, thinking now that Li Qingheng is not dead, the Li family will be even more different. Without the previous life's knowledge and assistance, Li Yunjiao may not consider me his brother. Fortunately, I have made friends with those from the Xuan generation, so it's not too bad. Seeing the advantages of his rebirth gradually fading, Liu Changdi began to lose hope. I do not know if Mufeng and Zhongqing have reached the Qi cultivation realm. It seems I still need to return to the Li family. After all, I am not destined to roam the world alone. Lost in thought, he felt a slight weight underfoot as clouds appeared beneath him. The man standing at the bow of the ship poked his head inside and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoists, we have arrived." Liu Changdi quickly stood up as they descended upon the city below. He saw a majestic great wall stretching out and covered in intricate runes, forming a unified whole and turning the entire city itself into a grand formation. As expected of the city left by the Moonlight Origin Mansion, no other formations of the present era could be compared to it. Liu Changdi had lost count of the times he had climbed up and down these city walls in his previous life, but he was still filled with emotion. Looking up, he saw eagles and sparrows circling relentlessly above the land with bones scattered everywhere. In the distance, a dense forest raised waves of leaves in the north wind. This is Yi Mountain City. Following his memories, Liu Changdi landed at this first stronghold of the Yue state, and he saw the cultivators around the stronghold gathering. He searched carefully and finally saw a middle-aged man carrying a golden bow who was smiling at him. Brother Xuanfeng. Liu Changdi ignored the others surrounding him and eagerly went over, saying joyfully, "Congratulations." Li Xuanfeng raised an eyebrow, his gaze lighting up with interest. He asked, "What is there to congratulate about?" "Ha ha ha ha," Liu Changdi laughed heartily and said, "Senior Tangye has slain the Maha with his sword and forced the retreat of a prestigious clan. His reputation is resounding." Most of the cultivators on the stronghold were from around Moongaze Lake. Hearing this, they were all stunned, finding it hard to believe and silently swallowing in fear. Before Li Xuanfeng could speak, someone asked a question that caught everyone's attention immediately. "Has Senior already broken through to the Purple Mansion realm?" "No," Liu Changdi replied softly as he gathered everyone to sit down and began to explain in detail. The group listened, occasionally gasping and sighing. When he mentioned Fei Wengbai's death, Fei Yi suddenly stood up, his face flushed with disbelief. "How is that possible? Our cloud-gathering southern heaven formation isn't just for show. What nonsense are you spouting?" he exclaimed in shock and anger. Liu Changdi smiled wryly, having anticipated his reaction. "If you do not believe me, you can go to the other cities and ask around. There is nothing more I can do." Seeing Fei Yi's incredulous expression, Liu Changdi thought to himself, losing just Fei Wengbei is far better than the entire clan being wiped out. Li family. In the hall, Li Yunjiao and Li Yuanping stood with their cupped fists. The middle-aged man at the head wore several medicine pouches at his waist, exuding a gentle demeanor. He stroked his beard with one hand and placed the other on Li Ziming's back, his eyes slightly closed. The red haze in the sea of qi rises fourfold. Shenyang Mansion harmonizes water and fire. Juke Acupoint's spiritual energy flows continuously, and 12 levels of the trachea align in harmony. Zhao Yuanci nodded lightly and said warmly, "Congratulations to both of you. This child indeed has a constitution suited for alchemy. His heart fire is balanced and just, making him particularly adept at refining pills that can enhance cultivation and break through barriers. This is quite rare." Zhao Yuanci was always gentle and scholarly. Even when facing two juniors, he remained courteous and calm. Li Yunjia was overjoyed upon hearing this and replied, "Thank you, senior." Zhao Yuanci chuckled and shook his head, saying kindly, "No need to thank me. But I shall accept it." He took out a jade slip from his sleeve and handed it to Li Ziming, explaining, "Your family's snake dragon tree bears fruit annually, and it is a hassle to send it to me each time. I used a private recipe to exchange the snake essence pill formula from my clan. Consider it a meeting gift for Minger." Li Yunjiao had always heard that this senior took great care of their clan and was trustworthy, which was why he dared to invite him. Unexpectedly, Zhao Yuanci presented such a grand gift, leaving Li Yunjiao somewhat overwhelmed. "This is too much," he exclaimed. Zhao Yuanci laughed, shaking his head. He let out a sigh and said, "No need to be so polite. Since you invited me, I cannot be stingy. I promised Jinger that I would take good care of your family." The two brothers wanted to express their gratitude further, but Zhao Yuanci simply waved them off and said, "Our family's ancestor has been away for many years. I had just returned from gathering herbs in the mountains this month, only to hear about Tangye slaying the Maha and forcing the retreat of the Yu family. What happened?" Li Yunjiao felt a chill run through him, thinking to himself, the Zhao family certainly knows the truth about Li Tangye slaying the Maha. Even if they don't know the specifics of what happened in the end, they must know that our ancestor was used as bait. Zhao Yuanci's gaze was calm and his eyes gentle, giving no hint of any hidden knowledge. This made Li Yunjiao feel a cold sweat break out on his back, and he thought to himself, it seems the Zhao family is intentionally keeping things from him. Should I tell him or not? He hesitated for a moment, his mind racing with thoughts, feeling deeply apprehensive. Our Li family shouldn't be aware of this. Although Zhao Yuanci has good intentions, a gentleman should be forthright. Perhaps Zhao Gitu and the others are using this to test us. He then shook his head and answered, "Our ancestor returned and immediately went into seclusion. We are not aware of the details. We only know that the Maha was merely a reincarnated body." Zhao Yuanci gazed intently at him for a moment, then nodded thoughtfully before asking, "I received a letter from my junior sister a while ago. Is it true that you have a child studying under her?" "Indeed." Li Yunjia was eager for the change in topic and quickly called Li Zijai over. Li Zijai, dressed in a brocade robe, had a dignified appearance. Although he was not as impressive as his younger brother Li Zijin, he still stood in the courtyard with a certain grace. Chapter 353, Arrival of the Cloudliner II. Zijai greets senior. Li Zijai greeted as he cupped his fist respectfully. Zhao Yuanci nodded and mused. "Yuan Tuan owes your family a great deal." She will certainly take good care of this child. Do not hesitate to ask her for anything he needs. However, he soon let out a sigh. He glanced down at the shimmering dragon coiling pillar sword hanging from Li Yunjie's waist and nodded. This dragon coiling pillar has been in the Yuan family for many years. Even though they have no sword cultivators, they never let it go. Now it has easily come into your family's possession. That speaks volumes. The dragon coiling pillar was a congratulatory gift from the Yuan family to Li Tongya when he had achieved the foundation establishment realm. It eventually ended up with Li Yunjie, who had never thought much about it. Zhao Yuanci continued to explain, the Yuan family of Mushroom Forest Plain owes your Li family a great debt. Giving you dragon coiling pillar hardly repays even a fraction of that debt. If you need anything, you can always ask the Yuan family for. Li Yunjie felt increasingly suspicious. Instead of feeling pleased, he grew alarmed and narrowed his eyes, asking softly, I was unaware of this matter. Could you enlighten me, senior? Well, Zhao Yuanci looked uncomfortable, pausing for several seconds before speaking vaguely. I only recently learned of this. The Azure Crest manifestation was originally a substitute for Lake Moon Autumn, which is why my junior sister delayed for so many years. It is a complicated mess, and it is really difficult to explain. Seeing the puzzled looks on the faces of the two brothers, Zhao Yuanci changed the topic awkwardly but hastily. It has been many years, Yunjie. At such a young age, you have already reached the 6th heavenly layer of Qi cultivation realm. He suddenly remarked with a forced smile. You flatter me, senior. Li Yunjie responded politely despite his confusion. Zhao Yuanci chuckled. Each generation brings forth new talents. Rare indeed, he commended, though his words hinted to a deeper meaning behind them. He then looked at the two juniors with a smile and with a playful tone said, Senior Mushin, he's probably more than just a simple foundation establishment realm cultivator, is he not? The two brothers exchanged glances, both equally confused. Li Yunjie respectfully replied, the family records do not provide detailed information. Zhao Yuanci waved his hand and interrupted him before saying loudly, I see, never mind then. I still have important matters to attend to, so I won't intrude any longer. Please inform me when Tongya emerges from seclusion. Of course, the two immediately responded before Zhao Yuanci left by riding the wind. Li Yunjie respectfully saw him off beyond the borders, then returned. The affairs in the hall had already been taken care of. Li Yuanping was holding the alchemy recipe, reading it in deep thought. Seeing Li Yunjie stride in, he smiled wryly and said, Senior Zhao has been so considerate, we have no way to repay him. The Zhao family indeed has shown great kindness to our family. Moreover, we will still need to rely on the Zhao family in the future. Li Yunjie responded with a sigh. Zhao Yuanci is Zhao Yuanci. The Zhao family is the Zhao family. Senior Zhao's intentions are protective and caring, but Zhao Gidu may not necessarily feel the same. This matter is not urgent, but how did the Yuan family come to owe us a favor? It seems to be related to the Sword Immortal. Lake Moon Autumn is the Sword Immortal's Dao foundation. Perhaps Yuan Tuan owed a favor. It is just a pity we cannot ask the ancestor. The two pondered about the matter for a little while longer but ultimately lacked information and could not deduce much, so they had to give it up. Li Yunjie picked up a jade slip, assessed it with his spiritual sense, and said warmly, This Golden Temple Radiant Origin Manual is indeed excellent, and the Radiant Origin Pass has many wonders. However, collecting the spiritual qi of heaven and earth known as Golden Yang Radiant Origin is quite difficult. Li Yuanping had also read this technique and immediately responded, saying, This spiritual qi of heaven and earth indeed sounds extraordinary. Fortunately, the technique also includes methods for gathering this qi. Otherwise, such ancient spiritual qi would be impossible to find even if we turned Yue State upside down. Li Yunjie laughed and shook his head, reading aloud, Seek a pass extending for thousands of li in the desert. Wait until dusk when the wind and sand are calm and the sunset is half set. Then use your mana to extract the power of the glowing sun. There is only a moment to obtain this energy, requiring 2 years to get a wisp and 10 wisps to make one portion. Ancient methods are indeed troublesome. Li Yuanping sighed and reminded him, it is even more than that. The Golden Yang Radiant Origin must not come into contact with gold, iron, copper, water, or wood. Otherwise, it will transform into scorching smoke qi. It also requires a fine jade box for storage. That is not a concern. Li Yunjie still had a Purple Mansion Realm jade box that Li Tongya had found on the island in the heart of the lake, and it was more than sufficient to store the Golden Yang Radiant Origin qi. He was now considering where to find such a pass. Brother, put these matters aside for now. The Dawn Cloudliner is arriving, Li Yuanping said as he shook his head slightly. The golden cloudliner glowed brilliantly, its golden wings cutting through layers of clouds. It glided over the dark green lake water, reflecting dazzling golden light. At the front of the Dawn Cloudliner, a youth in simple green attire stood quietly. His features bore a strong resemblance to Yu Mugao. but while Yu Mugao's expression was often harsh and sinister, this man's face was calm and serene. Moongaze Lake, formerly known as the Moongaze Marsh. The Dawn Cloudliner docked slowly in Milan Prefecture. Yu Muxian stood with his hands behind his back, his ethereal demeanor making his simple clothing appear elegant and dynamic. Just by standing there, he drew the gazes of all the cultivators on the ship. Yu Muxian had been away from home for over 20 years, making it hard to recognize the familiar landscape beneath his feet. He gazed down in indifference, continuously playing with the jade buckle in his hand. The jade buckle was as clear as ice, emitting a faint moonlight-like glow as he twirled it in his hand. Yu Muxian's eyes gazed steadily forward, seemingly observing something in silence. Moongaze Lake, truly a blessed land. The jade buckle in his hand glimmered faintly with colored light, and the immortal foundation within him, the molten metal cave, continued to operate. Shadows appeared in his pupils as he counted silently. The Yu family's Jade Smoke Mountain, the Li family's Kinch Sword, and Taoisti's Nine Gates Temple. A trace of purple light flashed in Yu Muxian's eyes, and he smiled slightly, whispering to himself, "Oh, there is also a hidden spear." He withdrew his gaze and glanced around him, raising an eyebrow in curiosity. A minor Mount Yue cultivator possessing a Foundation Establishment Realm Dharma artifact. Ah, he must be from Duan Muqi's Mount Wu. I guess it's no surprise they'd have one or two valuable items on hand. Yu Muxian examined for a while, then frowned with a hint of disdain in his eyes, envisioning the mountains of corpses and seas of blood. He thought to himself, the mountain of human heads. What a sinister Dharma artifact. Despite his disdain, Yu Muxian could not help but admire the clever design of the artifact. He then mused, there are 10 Foundation Establishment Realm legacies and 5 Foundation Establishment Realm artifacts around this lake. Aside from the 3 sects and 7 gates, no place in Yue State is richer than Moongaze Lake. While he was lost in thought, the Dawn Cloudliner came to a gentle stop. Yu Muxian disembarked slowly, hearing a chorus of respectful greetings from the mountain below. "Welcome, emissary." Yu Muxian looked up to see a crowd of bowing cultivators. He rubbed the jade buckle and responded, "No need for formalities." The cultivators straightened up right away and returned to their seats. A middle-aged cultivator with a haggard face but hawk-like piercing eyes that were full of sinister intensity approached Yu Muxian, bowing deeply and cupping his fist. Yu Mugao of the Milan Yu family greets the emissary. This man was his older brother by blood. Rise. Yu Muxian's icy demeanor faltered slightly as he gazed at Yu Mugao, who slowly lifted his head. Yu Mugao spoke respectfully and courteously. "Thank you, emissary." The two brothers locked eyes for a moment, their gazes clashing in silence, one with a hawk-like gaze, the other as cold as snow. Their faces bore a striking resemblance, yet their auras were entirely different. Chapter 354, The Jade Buckle Eye. The group of cultivators from Milan Prefecture paid their tributes. The Dawn Cloudliner, with its colorful radiance and long tail, docked in the sky, casting a beautiful golden-red reflection. Meanwhile, at the Li residence, in a dim room shrouded in white mist, a bluish-gray mirror slowly floated up, vibrating incessantly and emitting dazzling white light. Lu Jiangxian's divine sense suppressed the trembling of the mirror, and he was filled with suspicion and alarm. This is. Various illusions appeared before his eyes, a rushing clear stream, a treasure vault glittering with mana lights, a young boy's tender face, fair arms, towering mountains with immortals traversing them, gushing spirit springs, and a cave dwelling abundant with spiritual chi. Finally, the vision lingered on the radiant Dawn Cloudliner. There is a mirror fragment on the Dawn Cloudliner. Lu Jiangxian had experienced this reaction before. The jade stones by the lake and the jade pendant in the old Taoist's hand had both caused similar feelings of trepidation. Now that the mirror's power had gradually recovered, these impulses had grown even stronger. Who is it? The mirror floated up again, with 12 ancient runes shining one by one on its surface. If not for Lu Jiangxian's suppression, it would have already flown away long ago, drawing the fragments together in reunion. This sensation and phenomenon even emanated from the mirror, ricocheting within the sealed dark room and transforming into various mystical visions. Patterns on the ground suddenly sprouted osmanthus trees with golden white flowers hanging down from their branches. Their stamens were like gold, exuding a pleasant fragrance and appearing particularly brilliant in the misty moonlight. The rustling sound grew louder, and a few energetic and lively toads hopped out from the shadows, playing among the fallen osmanthus flowers. A jade buckle appeared in the reflection of the bluish-gray mirror. Yu Muxian. It is on Yu Muxian. Amidst the illusions, Lu Jiangxian recognized the face resembling Yu Mugao's, exuding an ethereal aura. Who else could it be but Yu Muxian? Rumble. The sunlight above the Li residence dimmed. The mirror's internal world shook, its tremors tracing back through the connection of the talisman seeds. Outside, the talisman seeds trembled, emitting white light. Li Ziming, who was the closest, was quietly reading an alchemy text in the Great Hall. His Qihai acupoint suddenly churned, radiating brilliant light that caused him intense pain, making him cry out in agony. He curled up in pain, breaking out in a cold sweat almost immediately. Li Yuanping, who was reading a secret letter in the clan affairs courtyard, was startled by the child's scream. He jumped up, not even bothering to put on his shoes, and rushed to the child's side. "Ming'er, Ming'er," he called out anxiously. Li Ziming was Li Yuanping's only son and a precious asset to the Li family. Naturally, his distress threw Li Yuanping into a panic. He reached out to touch the child's forehead and found it cold and clammy, much to his dismay. When he lifted his hand, he discovered it was covered in transparent mucus. The mucus was icy cold. As it dripped to the ground, it transformed into golden white petals that scattered everywhere, leaving Li Yuanping stunned. The petals were striking, shattering upon contact with the ground and rising as bright, moon-like yin energy. The sight blew Li Yuanping's mind. Du Yi, standing at the far end, was terrified by the scene. With Li Yuanping's lifespan limited and Madame Du being heartless, the entire Du family depended on young Li Ziming. Du Yi hurriedly rushed up the steps, alarmed by the turn of events. "Young master." As the Li family ascended to the status of a clan, more and more rogue cultivators visited, and the standards for such visits were modeled after those of other clans in Yue State. The upper staircase had over 20 steps, and it took Du Yi several moments to climb them all. Du Yi had just ascended the last few steps when he rushed forward to find Li Yuanping. Li Yuanping turned abruptly, his gray-black pupils dilated and his forehead covered in a sheen of sweat. The gentleness in his face was completely gone, replaced by a grim and fierce expression. "Get out," he shouted fiercely. Du Yi had been with him for almost 10 years and had only ever seen such an expression on Li Yuanjiao's face. Li Yuanping was usually much more composed and gentle, and seeing him like this now made Du Yi's heart pound in fear. He stumbled backward, missed a step, and fell, rolling down the dozen steps. Thud. Living a life of luxury and indulgence in recent years had left Du Yi quite plump, and he rolled all the way to the bottom of the stairs with a heavy thud. Without daring to lift his head, he grabbed his robe and scrambled out of the hall hastily. Li Yuanping stood at the top, his body trembling slightly. He dared not move an inch, using his wide robe to cover the trembling Li Ziming in his arms. "Everyone leave," he instructed firmly. It was not until the clinking sounds of armor had faded and the guards at the sides of the stairs had retreated did he quickly grab the alchemy book from the table. In his haste, Li Yuanping knocked over ink and brushes, which fell with a clatter. He paid no attention to the mess, frantically patting the few bright streams of moonlight-like energy beneath him. Only when the last of the supreme yin moonlight disappeared and the entire hall had turned cold did a bit of color return to his face. "Father." Li Ziming attempted to rise amidst the scattered osmanthus petals. Li Yuanping hurriedly embraced him, relieved to find that the boy was unharmed. He murmured, "Immortal mirror, it's the immortal mirror." Meanwhile on Mount Wudu, Li Zijai suddenly looked up, staring at the scattered petals in his hands. Hundreds of li away at the cloud-crowned peak market, Li Xuanxuan, who was bargaining with a customer, abruptly fell silent, hearing a faint rustling sound. In the Yi Mountain City, in the Milin Prefecture. All those who received a profound pearl talisman seed looked up simultaneously, gazing into the distance pensively as an ethereal face, and a translucent, smooth jade buckle appeared before their eyes. Li Yunjiao suddenly raised his head, the profound pearl talisman seed in his Kihai acupoint vibrating intensely. A point of white light appeared in his eyes and he felt a strong attraction, his gaze fixed on Yu Muxian's white robe. Yu Muxian, jade buckle. Seeing Yu Muxian seemingly sense something and look up, Li Yunjiao slowly lowered his head. He had once read in the family's history about Li Tangya back when he was still a mortal, who had ventured into the reed marshes at night and found that jade stone, a feat that seemed impossible. The vastness of the reed marshes made it akin to finding a needle in a haystack. How could a mere mortal find it? He had attributed it to Li Tangya's unique fortune, which was different from ordinary people. Now truly facing the legendary treasure that could fuse with the mirror, he realized its wondrous nature. Even without looking at Yu Muxian, he could feel the jade buckle in his hand. At the top, Yu Muxian felt a sudden sense of unease, a fleeting pang that vanished as quickly as it came, leaving no trace behind. Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators who had refined their immortal foundations possessed certain mystic abilities. A sudden premonition was a significant matter, but after thoroughly inspecting himself and finding nothing out of place, he could only cast suspicious glances at those below him. Milin Prefecture's Yu family. The attendant of the immortal sect began calling names, and Yu Muxian dismissed his distractions, quietly watching his brother bow and withdraw. He then stood upright. His gaze lingered on Yu Mugao's gaunt cheeks and haggard figure. The burdens of thought and scheme seemed to have crushed the man. Despite being at the fifth heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm cultivation, he was tormented to this state by the internal strife and intense struggles within the Yu family. With Yu Xiaogui severely injured and in seclusion, the various branches of the Yu family, already dissatisfied with Yu Mugao's control, had erupted into chaos, each faction acting independently. If not for the absence of news confirming Yu Xiaogui's death and Yu Mugao's ruthless methods, the situation might have already turned disastrous. Chapter 355, The Jade Buckle II. 16 stalks of autumn moon grass, 2,000 jin of purple jade spirit rice, 90 pieces of azure pool essence stones, 7 long sea pearls. Box after box of spirit items were carried to the state. Yu Muxian, rubbing the jade buckle in his hand, reflected internally, if I had not found this treasure as a child, which allowed me to see through people's true nature and sever worldly ties, I might have ended up mired in the power struggles of the Yu family at Moongaze Lake, facing a tragic fate. Li family of Lijiang. Yu Muxian was lost in thought when the attendant's voice brought him back to reality. A young man in black came forward, broad-shouldered with high-set eyebrows, exuding an ambitious air that made him seem untrustworthy at first glance. Li Yuanjiao of the Li family greets the emissary. Li Yuanjiao responded with composure, his gaze fixed on Yu Muxian's robe. Yu Muxian nodded and said warmly, I have long heard of the Sword Immortal's fame. He cupped his fist, smiling as he continued, the Qingche sword that the Sword Immortal wielded was crafted by my master's own hands. Yunwu Peak has always had good relations with Kingsui Peak. There is no need for such formalities, fellow Taoist. These words not only stirred Li Yuanjiao, but also drew the attention of the various families around the lake. Yu Mugao slowly closed his eyes, saying nothing. So there is such a connection. Yu Muxian's excessive friendliness made Li Yuanjiao uncertain of his intentions. He responded vaguely, and Yu Muxian said no more, simply standing there with his hands clasped behind his back. As box after box of spirit items were brought up and all the families reported, an attendant verified everything. A young cultivator in green then stepped forward, respectfully addressing Yu Muxian, senior brother. The 3 clans and 16 prominent families of Moongaze Lake, along with 41 smaller households, have all been checked. Please review them. Yu Muxian took the record from him and read aloud the names of the families marked for discrepancies either underreporting or for the poor quality of spirit items. Immediately, several disciples in green stepped forward and dragged the offenders out unceremoniously. Thud, the people from several families trembled and kneeled. Yu Muxian chuckled lightly and asked, Junior brother, how are these cases usually handled? The reporting disciple looked disdainfully at the families below and replied, They shall be punished according to the severity of the discrepancies, some by executing their elders, others by removing their family name, and some by banishment to Yi Mountain City. The crowd below immediately began to tremble with fear, begging for mercy out loud repeatedly. Yu Muxian glanced at them and saw that several families were under the jurisdiction of Taoist He on the Western Shore, most likely unable to pay double taxes. He then said gently, just confiscate the storage pouches from a few people to make up for the shortfall. Otherwise, we'll have to require Senior He's advice and trouble him. Understood. As soon as he had finished speaking, several uniformed cultivators seized the storage pouches from those individuals. Despite their pleas and cries, the cultivators handed the pouches to Yu Muxian, who calmly tucked them into his sleeve. Then he said, the clans should stay, the rest may leave now. The smaller households felt as if they had received a pardon and they bid their farewells, then quickly scattered like the wind. In an instant, only the Azure Pond cultivators and the Fei, Lei, and Yu families remained on the mountaintop. Although the Fei family had lost Fei Wangbai, they were still recognized as a clan by the Azure Pond sect and therefore did not leave. Representing the Fei family was Fei Tongyu, who had just reached the Qi cultivation realm. His aura was unstable, indicating that he had used some medicinal aid. Yu Muxian swung his sleeve, stepped forward, and cupped his fist to Fei Tongyu. His immortal grace was evident as he said regretfully, You must be the young master of the Fei family. I have heard about Senior Wangbai's passing. As a cultivator under our sect, his death caused quite a stir within the sect, and we sent people to investigate. Shaking his head with regret, he continued in a low voice, Unfortunately, the culprit remains elusive, and we have not uncovered any information. Thank you for your effort. Fei Tongyu responded, pretending to be moved by his words as he exchanged pleasantries with Yu Muxian. Yu Muxian then said, The Fei family has provided tributes for many years. Our sect feels obliged to offer some compensation. Fei Tongyu's eyes lit up, understanding that the crucial moment had arrived. Yu Muxian smiled and said, My master has decided that the next disciple slot will go to your clan. These words shocked the 3 families. Several moments of silence passed, with only the whistling wind breaking the quietness. What? Yu Mugao was utterly stunned, his expression one of disbelief. Li Yuanjiao appeared thoughtful while Fei Tongyu exclaimed in amazement, Which peak would that be? Naturally, it will be my Yuanwu peak, Yu Muxian announced. After the initial shock, Fei Tongyu was visibly overjoyed. Fei Wangbai's greatest regret while he was alive was not being able to support a disciple within the Azure Pond sect. Now, despite knowing Yu Muxian's likely had ulterior motives, he could not bring himself to refuse such an offer. My family still needs to send disciples to the sect, so how could the Fei family refuse? How could they possibly refuse? Li Yunjiao stared silently at Yu Muxian's ethereal profile, lost in countless thoughts. For a moment, he was speechless, only thinking to himself, this Yu Muxian. He is indeed a remarkable figure. With this single move, he has restored the tripartite balance on the lake and caused a rift between the Fei family and mine. Even if the ancestors were still alive, there would be no changing this. He keeps that jade buckle hidden inside his robe, close to his body. It must have many miraculous properties. Obtaining it will definitely not be an easy task. I must plan carefully. Meanwhile, Yu Muxian discussed some details with Fei Tongyu. Afterward, he turned to address Yu Mugao and Li Yunjiao, saying softly, "Greetings, fellow Taoists." Yu Muxian was a Foundation Establishment Realm immortal cultivator, and both of them felt unworthy of being addressed as fellow Taoists by him. Before they could decline and refuse, Yu Muxian continued, "Every 70 years, the various peaks of the sect rotate their jurisdictions. Moongaze Lake now falls under the jurisdiction of Yunwu Peak. In recent years, my junior brothers have been handling peak-related affairs, and we have not made proper agreements with you all. This has caused many disturbances on the lake, which is our peak's fault." Li Yunjiao dared not let him apologize and quickly brushed things off. Yu Mugao, on the other hand, stared at Yu Muxian in confusion and disbelief, as if he could no longer recognize his younger brother. Yu Muxian then continued, "So I reported to my master, and Yunwu Peak has reevaluated the current situation and redefined the boundaries, which I have brought to you." With a gentle pat on his silk pouch, 3 light green jade seals appeared in his hand, which he distributed to the 3 of them. His gaze finally carried a hint of warning as he said coldly, "With these boundaries set, minor conflicts between minor households will not be our concern, but the major clans must not engage in further disputes. This is also my master's intention." Li Yunjiao received the light green jade seal and brushed it lightly with his hand. The seal emitted a golden light, revealing several large golden characters, under the jurisdiction of Azure Pond Sect. Immediately, the boundaries' outlines appeared in silvery light, encompassing Lijiang, Huaqian, Huizhong, Yuding, and even including Mount Wudu and eastern Mount Yue. The Li family had previously held a jade seal left by Si Yunbai, which only marked the 4 towns of Lijiang. It could not compare to this new one. Now that Yunwu Peak had acknowledged the legitimacy of the Li family's territory, Li Yunjiao felt a sense of relief and responded, "We will strictly follow the Taoist master's decree." Fei Tongyu was even more overjoyed. Of the 3 major clans on the lake, his was the weakest. He responded eagerly and felt greatly relieved. Seeing Li Yunjiao and Fei Tongyu both agree, Yu Muxian nodded approvingly. "Thank you, fellow Taoists." Chapter 356, Conclusion I. As soon as Li Yunjiao put away the jade seal, he caught sight of a stream of light rising in the distance, quickly approaching them. A man and a woman were riding a flying shuttle and soon landed nearby. Several Azure Pond Sect disciples rose on their flying shuttles promptly, forming hand seals as they shouted in unison, "The Azure Pond Cloudliner is here, who goes there?" The woman, riding the flying shuttle, furrowed her brows but did not stop. She bypassed the disciples, and the spells they cast were futile as they were blocked by a few talismans she threw out, causing them to fall heavily to the ground. These disciples were outer disciples of the Azure Pond Sect, only slightly higher in status than attendants, and were all at the embryonic breathing realm. The woman managed to barge through them, panting as she landed beside Li Yunjiao. "Brother," she urgently called out, "Qingxiao." Li Yunjiao was taken aback, greatly shocked. The female cultivator before him, her face slightly flushed, was none other than Li Qingxiao. She was only at the 3rd stage of the embryonic breathing realm, yet she stood behind him with her hand on her sword, watching the others intently. Li Yunjiao, understanding that Li Qingxiao had come to support him, felt deeply moved but also slightly angered. He whispered sharply, "Why are you so reckless?" A man at the back hurriedly stepped forward, pulling Li Qingxiao behind him, and awkwardly cleared his throat before speaking in an apologetic tone. "Zhao Xian of the Zhao family greets the immortal sect's emissary. My wife does not understand the rules and has been disrespectful. I hope you can forgive us." "No matter." Yu Muxian's gaze lingered briefly on Li Qingxiao and Zhao Xian before continuing. "I will not hold you here any longer. Feel free to go about your business." "Thank you, emissary. Yunjiao shall take his leave now," Li Yunjiao replied as he discreetly glanced at Yu Muxian's robe. Li Qingxiao seemed bewildered and was about to say something but closed her mouth obediently after receiving a stern look from Li Yunjiao. The Li family members, feeling as if they had received a pardon, quickly flew off. Li Qingxiao and Zhao Xian, unable to fly since they were not Qi cultivators, followed on their flying shuttle. After traveling a few Li Qingxiao complained, "Brother, how could you keep such a huge matter from me? I only heard about it from home. Did Yu Muxian give our family any trouble?" "No, he did not." Li Yunjiao shook his head and explained the situation to her briefly. Then he turned to Zhao Xian and cupped his fist. I apologize for my younger sister's ignorance. No apologies needed. Zhao Xian hurriedly replied, waving his hands. I am only an embryonic breathing realm cultivator without much ability and rely on Zhao family's influence. This was not only King Xiao's impulsive decision, I've considered it as well. Seeing Zhao Xian speaking up for Li Qingxiao, Li Yunjiao thought more highly of him. Li Qingxiao, ignoring the politeness between the two men, nodded thoughtfully and said, I heard Yu Muxian is the precious son-in-law of Taoist Master Yuanwu and usually does not involve himself with the Yu family. From what I have seen, he seems quite unkind and unloyal. Li Yunjiao nodded slightly, distracted as he was still thinking about the jade buckle. Zhao Xian hesitated briefly before speaking in a low voice. Not necessarily. I have a clan uncle who was close to the Yu family. He mentioned knowing the younger generation of the Yu family. Feeling it was awkward to speak about the Zhao family's past attempts to support the Yu family, Zhao Xian reluctantly continued, as both Li Qingxiao and Li Yunjiao were looking at him expectantly. My clan uncle once said that the Yu family has 4 successors. Yu Mugao is thoughtful and resourceful, Yu Maiyuan is bright and courageous, Yu Mujian is pure-hearted, and Yu Muxian is gentle and generous. If Yu Muxian leads with Mugao, Maiyuan, and Mujian as his supporters, they will shine for generations. No one could oppose them. He paused, feeling somewhat embarrassed. Now that Yu Maiyuan was dead, Yu Muxian was heartless, and Yu Mujian had left the family. Only Yu Mugao was left struggling to support the family. Zhao Xian could not help but think to himself, clan uncle said it with such confidence. No wonder he has not returned home for years. He must be afraid of becoming a laughing stock. While he pondered silently, he spoke. Judging by those words, Yu Muxian should not be this heartless. Li Qingxiao looked thoughtful as she said, who knows? Perhaps he feels he cannot afford not to be heartless, to gain others' trust, or maybe. Her voice became soft and eerie as she continued. Perhaps Tang Yunwu has cast some divine ability on him, planted some spell in his mind. I have heard that the Purple Mansion realm's divine abilities are the most sinister. It is possible that one of the old ancestors from the Azure Pond sect has taken over his body. With these words, both of them felt a chill down their spines. After a brief silence, Zhao Xian whispered, he's a Taoist master. Let us not call him by name so casually. Tang Yunwu had been a Purple Mansion realm cultivator for many years. He founded Yunwu Peak, and then went into seclusion to cultivate a second divine ability, passing the position of Peak Master to his son. Tang Yunwu's son managed the peak for many years, and reached the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm. It was only a few years ago that he perished in an attempt to break through to the Purple Mansion realm, forcing Tang Yunwu to come out of seclusion to take over once more. Zhao Xian explained all this and added, Yu Muxian also married Tang Yunwu's daughter. He is quite famous in the sect, and it will not be long before he becomes the master of Yuanwu Peak. Li Yunjiao finally realized why Yu Muxian was so eager to stabilize the situation around the lake. It was all to prepare for his ascension to Peak Master. He nodded slowly as it all came together in his mind. The group landed before the Li family's mountain, where Li Yuanping was already waiting in the courtyard. Borter Ping, Li Qingxiao called out. Li Yuanping was momentarily stunned upon seeing her, but then greeted her happily, Sister Qingxiao. Li Qingxiao, having been married into the Zhao family for several years, had grown accustomed to their ways. Despite her ordinary looks, her elegant attire made Li Yuanping take a moment to recognize her. After a brief chat, she smiled and said, I have not seen our parents in years. I will first take my husband to greet them, and then come down the mountain to discuss matters with second brother. Of course, Li Yunjiao responded with a tender smile as he nodded. After Li Qingxiao and her husband went up the mountain, he then hurried into the hall and asked in a low voice, has there been any unusual activity at home? Li Yuanping nodded calmly and replied, Ziming, Zijai, and Zijin all had visions. When I asked them carefully, they all described seeing a man in white holding a jade buckle. Originally, Li Ziming had been cultivating in Lijing Town under Li Yuanping's watch. With Li Zijai preparing to enter the Azure Pond sect, he had been spending more time with their mother. Li Yuanping had already called the children back and hidden them on the mountain. Li Yuanping himself had not received any talismans and thus felt nothing significant. However, Li Yunjiao had felt it profoundly. He shook his head and said gravely, this is caused by the immortal mirror. Up the mountain we go. Chapter 357, Conclusion II. On Mount Lijing, the two men quickly undid the layers of protective formations and strode into the courtyard. The garden was lush and vibrant, bathed in golden sunlight, exuding a sense of vitality. They hurried to the ancestral hall, pushing open the thick stone door. Immediately, a burst of white qi current rushed out, forcing them to step back as a chilling sensation enveloped their bodies. The mist swirled in the courtyard, causing leaves and flowers to fall. The green branches turned yellow and withered, creating a cascade of dead leaves. In an instant, the once spring-like courtyard moments before had turned into an autumn scene, filled with a chilling atmosphere. Li Yunjiao stepped into the secret chamber and saw 5 or 6 small osmanthus trees that had sprouted within. Snow-white jade rabbits and yellow-green toads hopped around on the ground, filling him with astonishment. The ground was covered with fallen osmanthus flowers, and white moonlight mist spread everywhere. A bluish-gray mirror floated in the air, emitting ribbons of bright light, exuding an impressive aura. This is. Li Yunjiao carefully stepped around the hopping toads and rabbits on the ground, approaching the stone platform. He greeted respectfully. Descendant of the Li family greets the immortal mirror. Whether it was his words or the gradual departure of the Dawn Cloudliner returning to the Azure Pond sect in the south, the light on the mirror gradually dimmed but remained dazzling. Li Yuanping, only at the 3rd stage of the embryonic breathing realm, could not withstand the aura and dared not enter the chamber until the light had faded slightly. Even then, he felt the cold biting into his bones. Boom! Suddenly, the various phenomena in the dark chamber exploded, transforming into thick moonlight, resembling wisps of pure white mist. They swirled rapidly around Li Yunjiao, who was kneeling in the center. Before him, the mist condensed into a jade buckle. Li Yunjiao kneeled before the stone platform, watching the moonlight coalesce into the clear jade buckle. With a solemn expression, he said, "Li Yunjiao, a descendant of the Li family, has received the command." The radiance slowly receded and the mirror reverted to its dull gray state. The moonlight flowed back into the mirror from the stone platform. Li Yunjiao bowed once more before standing up slowly. The 2 brothers exited the dark chamber, the stone door closing silently behind them. Li Yuanping then said gravely, "Brother, Yu Muxian is a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator and a member of the Azure Pond sect at that. We must plan carefully." "I understand," Li Yunjiao replied, narrowing his eyes. He continued in a low voice, "Besides, it seems Yu Muxian has also benefited from that jade buckle. He constantly keeps it hidden in his sleeve, often rubbing it subconsciously. His remarkable achievements and rapid cultivation on Yunwu Peak must be linked to this treasure. That makes it even harder." Li Yuanping exclaimed in exasperation as he shook his head and said seriously, "First, we should send Zijia into the sect to gather information. As long as the jade buckle remains with Yu Muxian, we can eventually find a way to get our hands on it." Nodding, Li Yunjiao left the courtyard with his brother. Li Yuanping continued, "Regarding the matter of the Golden Yang radiant origin, this is of great importance and concerns our future path. It will take considerable time and effort. We need a reliable and capable qi cultivator to collect the qi. Are you suggesting?" Li Yunjiao's voice trailed off as his mind conjured up a name. He exchanged a glance with his brother and asked, "Uncle Chen Dong." "Exactly." Li Yuanping pursed his lips and continued, "To the west of Moongaze Lake lies the territory of the Golden Feather sect with several deserts. We can send someone to search that area. If there is no pass that stretches 1,000 li, we may have to head north." "Go ahead and make the arrangements," Li Yunjiao responded, fully trusting Li Yuanping. When he noticed Li Yuanping's pale complexion, he frowned and asked, "Why do you look so frail? There are many family matters to handle. Let Zicheng get some practice. Use more spirit herbs and do not strain yourself." "Heh." Li Yuanping shook his head and replied, "My body is inherently flawed like a leaking jar. No amount of spirit herbs will help. Maintaining my current cultivation without regression has already consumed many resources." As they spoke, they arrived at a small courtyard at the foot of the mountain, taking seats one after the other. Li Yuanping waved his hand to shift the topic away from himself and continued, speaking of Zicheng. "He is soft-hearted and indecisive, popular among the younger generation, but not fit to manage the household. A few days ago, I gave him some tasks, but he was indecisive and was easily swayed by others' opinions. I had to send him to Mount Yue to manage the spirit patties." Although Li Yunjiao trusted him, Li Yuanping made sure to explain the situation to avoid any misunderstanding, lest his brother thought he was mistreating the eldest son of the second lineage. Li Yunjiao, holding a cup of tea, replied, "It is not a big deal. I see Zijian is clever. Both he and Ziming show great promise. We should not be too hard on Zicheng." Li Yunjiao, once fierce and bloodthirsty, had mellowed significantly after enduring the deaths of his older brother and granduncle. Placing his cup down, he recounted Yu Muxian's visit in detail. Li Yuanping sighed. "Now that a Fei family disciple has entered Yuanwu Peak, they are at least a junior fellow of Yu Muxian, possibly even his disciple. They will find it hard to align with us as before. More than that." Li Yunjiao shook his head and was about to respond when he was interrupted by a well-dressed woman entering the courtyard. She greeted warmly, "Brother Yuanping." Li Qingxiao had just ascended the mountain, meeting a few from the Yuan generation. When she asked about the family's situation, Li Yuanping explained everything in detail, speaking softly. "The family has been doing well these past few years. The ancestor has also gained some insights and is in seclusion for cultivation. You do not need to worry." "All right." Li Qingxiao's eyes were slightly red, showing a hint of reluctance. She spoke softly. My husband has finished his duties in the clan over the past few years. We plan to return to Mount Yu, but when I heard about this, I hurried over. I cannot stay long and have to quickly bid farewell to our parents. Mount Yu is quite far from Moongaze Lake. If anything happens at home, it will be difficult to return promptly, she explained, then kneeled and bowed deeply. I must trouble Big Brother and Brother Ping to take care of my parents. King Xiao is forever grateful, she said. Just go without worries. Li Yunjiao said as he turned to the side, refusing her formalities. He shook his head slightly and continued in a low voice, focus on assisting your husband on Mount Yu. Do not worry about family matters to avoid unnecessary gossip. In a few years, when you have children, bring them back to see me. Yes, Li Qingxiao responded gently and left with Xiao Xian on their flying shuttles. Li Yunjiao then turned to Li Yuanping and said, soon, I will return to Mount Wudu for seclusion. By then, King Hong should also be out of seclusion. While she stabilizes her newfound power, you may approach her for any issues. Understood, Li Yuanping responded, watching Li Yunjiao calculate the time. Li Yunjiao then spoke in a serious tone. Inform King Hong that 3 months from now, on the Earth Pig Day, wait in the mountain together. I will come home then. Example: Li Yuanping was momentarily puzzled, not understanding the significance of the date. The annual sacrificial ceremony was in winter, which was far from that date. Unable to contain his curiosity, he asked, what is this about? It has been 5 years. Li Yunjiao sighed deeply, his lips barely moving as he used his mana to transmit his voice to Li Yuanping's ear. It has been 5 years since the ancestor's life jade broke. Following his instructions, we should open the entrance to my cave dwelling to welcome his immortal remains. Chapter 358, 5 years since my death. 3 months passed quietly. Li Qinghong, clad in jade armor, arrived by riding the wind. She still looked like she was in her early 20s. The spear in her hand was sharp and her jade armor was crystalline, adorned with intricate patterns. This was an embryonic breathing realm Dharma artifact. Armor-type artifacts were extremely expensive, second only to alchemy furnaces. This set was discovered when the family conquered Mount Yuding, and Li Tongya had gifted it to Li Qinghong, who in turn had given it to Li Yuanping. However, Li Yuanping insisted on sending it back, having Li Zicheng carry it to Mount Yuding for Li Qinghong, making poor Li Zicheng run back and forth, exhausted and out of breath. She took a few steps into Li Yuanping, who was seated at the end of the hall, raised his head. The spirited woman stood there conspicuously with her spear and dazzling jade armor. He quickly got up and smiled warmly with fondness in his eyes. Sister Hong. Li Qinghong smiled radiantly and stepped forward, her eyes shimmering with purple hues as she assessed Li Yuanping. She then remarked in a spirited tone, your cultivation is about to be overtaken by Zijai. Li Yuanping smiled gently. Li Ziming stepped forward, bowed respectfully and said, Ziming greets Auntie. Our family alchemist has arrived, Li Qinghong said teasingly, making Li Ziming blush. Li Yuanping saw that Li Qinghong's cultivation had advanced significantly, noting she had been at the 5th heavenly layer of Qi cultivation realm for a while, and sighed, Yu and Brother Jiao's cultivation speed is truly astonishing. Back then, Yu Mujian was considered highly gifted for reaching the Qi cultivation realm before 30. You and Brother Jiao are not even 30, yet both of you are already at the 5th and 6th heavenly layers respectively. How truly remarkable. Li Qinghong laughed heartily before speaking seriously, and Jingaming reached the 8th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm in his 20s. We are nothing compared to him. Li Yuanping nodded, recounting recent events. Li Qinghong listened carefully, pondered for a moment and said, I spent some time with the Fei family and am familiar with the Fei brothers Fei Tongyu and Fei Tingxiao. Her eyes gleamed with a purple hue as she continued softly. Fei Tongyu is handsome, gentle and amiable, but lacks decisiveness. He can go with the flow but not survive adversity. Fei Tingxiao is brave and resolute but loyal, and would not betray our family's kindness. Li Yuanping rarely heard news about these two, so he cherished this information, listening and taking notes mentally. Li Qinghong then smiled and said, even if a member of the Fei family joins the sect, these two would not easily turn against us. At most, they would be indecisive and try to balance both sides, so there is no need to worry. They conversed for a while, becoming somber as they remembered their purpose today. Li Yuanjiao and Li Xuangshuan were already approaching the hall. Li Xuangshuan appeared to have just rushed home from the market. Now over 50, his temples were graying, and he was stern and unsmiling. The younger generation quickly went up to greet him. The 4 of them, all clad in white robes, exchanged glances. Li Yuanjiao then gave them the solemn command, let us go up the mountain. Mike Peak Cave dwelling was discovered by Li Ziyingping and Li Tongya, who used the Supreme Yin profound light to break it open. It had been renovated multiple times with smooth stones, complex formation patterns, and 2 majestic stone lions. The 4 of them stood on the platform before the cave dwelling. Li Yuanjiao performed a series of hand seals and cast a spell, but the door of the cave dwelling remained motionless. He was slightly stunned and frowned. It is sealed from the inside. Seeing this, the other 3 turned to Li Qinghong. She practiced spear techniques and had mastered lightning-type skills, excelling in breaking through barriers. Li Yuanping cupped his fists and said, "Elder sister, please." Li Qinghong, hearing this, stepped forward with her spear, silently apologizing in her heart before swinging the spear. Lightning surged along the spear, concentrating at the tip of it. Ha! Li Qinghong thrust her spear with great force, swinging it down with a backhand strike. Purple lightning, taking the form of a serpent dragon with its claws bared, crashed into the stone door. This was the dragon reflection technique gifted by the Fei family 5 years ago, adept at breaking formations and defeating enemies. Li Qinghong had practiced it for years and mastered it, and it was perfect for this occasion. Boom! The formation on the stone door, primarily designed for gathering spiritual energy, suddenly lit up and shattered. Li Yunjiao and Li Xuanxuan had prepared in advance, pressing their hands against the wall to absorb the aftermath and protect the stone door. When the last trace of purple lightning disappeared, Li Yunjiao exhaled deeply and slowly pushed open the stone door. Whoosh! A cold wind rushed out from the cave instantly, dispersing into the sky. The three carefully ascended the steps and entered. Inside, on a stone bed, a white-clothed youth rested his chin on his hand with a sword on his lap. His eyes were closed, his black hair flowing down, with green water pooled on the floor. The stone table by the door had dew dripping from it. The four stared in a daze at the youth on the bed, bowed together, and then saw the white-clothed youth dissolve into green spirit water, leaving behind coral, glass, mica, and basalt scattered on the ground. Li Yuanjiao stepped forward and saw writing on the stone table, carved deeply into the surface, with characters like flying dragons and dancing phoenixes, bold and vigorous. "I have been dead for 5 years. My eyes have become glass, which can be placed in a box and buried. My bones have turned into mica and basalt. I hope future generations will discard them into the mountain streams for craftsmen to pick up, to be used as a foundation or beam. My internal organs have turned into green water. Pour it into great rivers and seas so that I can see the world's scenery. The rest of me has turned into coral and talc, to be scattered in the mountains and forests, or added into medicine and paint." Final words of Li Tongya of the Li family. In the room, the four remained silent, each with different expressions. Li Xuanxuan gently touched the stone table while Li Yunjiao took out a jade box, carefully placing the 2 pieces of glass inside. He then respectfully removed the Qingche sword from the bed, holding it close, and said to Li Qinghong, "Sister, please gather the basalt and mica, collect the spirit water, and find a mountain stream and a great river. I will first take granduncle back to the ancestral hall." Li Qinghong, with her head bowed, kneeled before the bed, lost in thought. After several moments, she finally managed to utter a word from her lips. "All right." She took out a jade box, carefully picking up the black and white crystal-clear spirit items with her hands, then used a spell to condense the green spirit water into a water ball. She held it in her hands, then flew away. Drifting away from Mount Lijing, Li Qinghong flew in silence for a while, searching all around until she finally found a mountain stream. The spring water trickled melodiously, and the ground was covered with orchid grass. Not far away, there was a small village of mortals, which suited Li Tongya's wishes. She took out the mica and basalt from the jade box and carefully placed them into the spring, one by one. After finishing her task, Li Qinghong sat down nearby, resting her chin in her hand, gazing thoughtfully. "Awo, awo." She was slightly startled and looked around with reddened eyes. She then noticed a fox with fiery red fur sitting by the stream, crying loudly. Li Qinghong hesitated, then cautiously stood up and said respectfully, "Junior Li Qinghong greets Senior." "Damn it," the fox cursed, looking up at Li Qinghong. It spat out a spirit herb and said angrily, "Li Tongya sealed the mark I left on him. I just found out he is dead now, and I had gone into the mountains to find this medicine for him for nothing. What a waste." Though cursing, the fox drooped its head, looking dejected. It glanced at her, picked up a piece of mica from the river, threw the spirit herb back into its mouth, and drawled, "I came to find Li Tongya, but saw you burying him. Just happened to stop by." Then it took off on a demonic wind, disappearing into the sky like a black wind, heading toward the depths of Mount Dali. Li Qinghong stood still for a moment, slowly bowed in the direction it had left in, then flew off to find the great river. The serene mountain stream returned to tranquility. Dew dripped softly and the stream water tinkled as it flowed. After a long while, a figure slowly emerged from the void. This person wore white robes, his loose clothing adorned with a piece of green jade at the front of it. His face was indistinct, and a sword dangled from his waist. He stood with his hands behind his back. Li Tongya. He looked down at the mica and basalt in the stream. Lifting one white cloth shoe, he gently kicked a stone, which rolled and tumbled into the water. Chapter 359, Testing the Horse Eye. A group of direct descendants discussed for a while and decided to keep Li Tongya's funeral private, only hanging white silk on the mountain. The few direct descendants paid their respects individually before dispersing. The news of Li Tongya's passing had already been known to a few direct descendants, who had completed their mourning period 3 years ago. Now they merely felt a brief moment of sorrow, before quickly returning to their respective duties. Li Xuanxuan stayed at home for a few days, which was a rare opportunity for him to see Li Yuanping every day. He held Li Ziming with a smile, playing with him as he asked gently, "Ming'er, how much have you read from the alchemy books? I can already summon the pill flame." Li Ziming responded happily as he nodded obediently, bringing his hands together to summon a pure white flame. It was as gentle as jade and as cool as water, quietly dancing between his palms. Li Yuanping happily took Li Ziming in his arms and looked at the smiling Li Xuanxuan, whispering, "Father, since you rarely return, you should stay home for a bit longer. Let the others in the family handle the market affairs." "No." Li Xuanxuan's expression immediately turned serious as he replied, "I am old and have long lost my drive. Second uncle saw this clearly, which was why he sent me to the market." His usually stern face showed a hint of remorse as he continued softly, "Your granduncle understood well. I am not truly talented at overseeing the family. At best, I am just a caretaker. I had made many mistakes while overseeing the family over those years." He sighed with a hint of guilt in his voice as he continued, saying, "Back then, the family had only a few members, and my father died young. My uncles always felt like they owed me, so they left the family's responsibilities on my shoulders." With a tinge of regret on his face, he added gently, "Xuanling is actually far more capable than myself. Second uncle's favoritism toward me kept him in the background. Even though my father died young, he was still beloved by the villagers and respected by many. And me, what about me?" Li Xuanxuan sighed deeply, his voice hoarse. "100 years from now, how will people speak of me?" It was the first time Li Yuanping saw his father like this, feeling a pang of sadness in his heart. Just as he was about to speak, Li Xuanxuan smiled slightly and continued, "Fortunately, the family is thriving and orderly. You are better than I am, so do your best." With a proud smile, he patted Li Ziming's head, then stepped out of the courtyard and flew away. Li Yuanping chuckled quietly and looked down. Li Yunjiao entered the hall just in time, seemingly having waited outside to avoid interrupting their conversation. He sat down, and soon, a person came forward, bowing. "Family head, the Lord of Eastern Mount Yue Shamali, has come alone with a horse, saying he has broken through to the fourth heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm and wishes to ascend the mountain to cultivate, and is no longer seeking status and power." Shamali. Li Yuanping raised an eyebrow and looked at Li Yunjiao, whispering, "I remember Shamali has a son named Li Jimin, raised in our family. He is part of our Li family branch. A few years ago, he went to Mount Yue to manage a city." "Correct," Li Yunjiao simply responded as he swirled his cup slightly, indicating that he had already considered this matter. Li Yuanping flipped through the documents on his desk, and upon finding a small letter, he frowned as he read it. The assessment of the clan affairs courtyard is that he is courteous and possesses the demeanor of a gentleman. What does brother think of this person? Li Yunjiao, who had spent years cultivating in eastern Mount Yue, was familiar with these matters. He shook his head upon hearing the question. Outwardly he appears respectful, but inside he is combative and far less compliant than Shamali. However, the influential families in eastern Mount Yue are powerful, and using him as a weapon is not a bad idea, he said thoughtfully. "Oh," Li Yuanping put away the small letter and took a sip of tea. At this moment Duyi, who had been waiting for an opportunity to speak, finally found his chance. He spoke softly, "Family head, Shamali has tamed a demon horse. It is at the 5th stage of the embryonic breathing realm, just a notch below the one from Giant Ixi. It is said to leave no tracks in the snow and moves like a ghost." "Oh," Li Yuanping looked up upon hearing this and exchanged a cheerful glance with his brother. Li Yunjiao asked warmly, "Is it a good horse?" "Of course," Duyi replied fawningly. However, Li Yuanping shook his head and said, "A good horse must be tested. One that is too wild can harm its rider, while one that is too docile cannot travel 1,000 li." Duyi nodded while visibly looking confused, and Li Yunjiao chuckled as he said, "Then I will leave it to you, Brother Ping. Rest assured, big brother." Li Yuanping read the letter in his hand and nodded firmly, then said in a deep voice, "Let him in." The person at the lower end of the hall responded and left. Soon, a man dressed in fine clothes and a jade crown entered, bowing respectfully. "Shamali greets family head." This was none other than Shamali, the ruler of Mount Yue, now at the 4th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm. Although he practiced various unrefined Qi, his high-grade technique made him comparable to cultivators of pure Qi. Li Yuanping looked at him and spoke warmly, "Since you wish to renounce your position and cultivate on the mountain, will you follow my brother to Mount Wudu?" "I could not ask for more," Shamali readily replied as he kneeled down on one knee. After the formalities were completed, Li Yunjiao stood up and said with a smile, "Then I shall return to the mountain first." "All right," Li Yuanping nodded, watching his brother and Shamali leave. He then waved to Li Ziming, who had been crouching quietly by the side observing everyone. He then said with a smile, "Go and change into your riding clothes." Li Ziming's eyes lit up instantly as he asked, "Father, where are we going?" Li Yuanping removed his cloak and said warmly, "To test the horse." The climate over Moongaze Lake had always been stable, with extreme droughts and floods being rare occurrences. This year, the rain arrived as expected, falling steadily and marking the end of summer as the evening breeze grew cooler. Recently, Li Yuanping had been in high spirits. Dressed in riding clothes, he rode his horse at full gallop, his usually pale face now flushed with excitement. His son Li Ziming nestled against his chest, giggling continuously. Hiya, Li Yuanping urged his horse forward, galloping down the road and leaving the convoy of carriages adorned with black flags far behind them. Normally found reclining on a soft couch, he now exuded a rare heroic aura, laughing heartily and looking carefree. The Li family had grown quite prosperous. The horse under Li Yuanping was a tribute from Mount Yue, named Zhangxuo. It moved silently like a ghost and possessed the strength of someone at the 5th stage of the embryonic breathing realm, having been personally tamed by Shamali and presented to Mount Lijing. Thrilled with his new steed, Li Yuanping raced from the outskirts of Lijing town to the outskirts of Wudu City in Mount Yue, with Li Ziming enjoying every moment. His black hair flew in the wind as he asked, "Father, where are we?" "This is eastern Mount Yue," Li Yuanping replied, his spirits high. He suppressed a cough in his throat, reined in his horse, and pointed his whip toward the northern mountain range. Smiling, he explained, "Beyond these mountains lies Wudu. Legend has it that Lord Xianping once led his troops through here, only 2 li from Mu Jiaomen's army." He held his breath and reined his horse, narrowly escaping disaster. Li Ziming listened intently. Li Yuanping continued in a gentle voice, "These mountains descend into Wudu City, the border city of Mount Yue. It is quite prosperous, and Li Jimin has been managing affairs here for 10 years. Chapter 360, Testing the Horse II. Li Jimin. Li Ziming pondered for a moment, then said, "Son of Shamali, heir to the throne of Mount Yue, soon to inherit the throne." Indeed, Li Yuanping agreed with his son's words. As he glanced around, he saw rain dripping from the leaves and knew that the Jade Court guards and several guest cultivators were closely protecting them. Relaxing, he let the horse follow the road at a leisurely pace. He rode absent-mindedly, his ears twitching slightly as he spoke with interest. Li Jimin is a clever man, but he is belligerent and treacherous, outwardly respectful but inwardly deceitful. The horse snorted and climbed a high slope, revealing a panoramic view of the scenery. Screams and roars echoed through the air, mingled with the sight of blood-stained ground. On the plain below, the walls of Wudu City were visible in the distance. A group of emaciated Mount Yue villagers, trembling and wielding hoes and pitchforks, had surrounded a gray wolf. The wolf, which appeared to have a low level of cultivation, snarled and roared incessantly. On a nearby hill, a brown carriage fluttered with flags, and long spears were arranged in a row. A group of soldiers sat idly, laughing and joking with each other. At the top sat a young man who was holding a fruit and laughing heartily. "That must be Li Jimin," Li Yuanping remarked casually. In his arms, Li Ziming frowned and whispered, "Father, what is he doing?" "Watching a show," Li Yuanping replied coldly. He watched as a blueblood below laughed loudly and threw a fruit, hitting the wolf demon on the head, provoking it. In its anger, the wolf howled and tore a nearby man to shreds in an instant. The peasant, frail and small, was quickly reduced to a pile of remains, further inciting the wolf's fury. It continued howling madly. The other nobles and Li Jimin on the hill watched intently and burst into laughter as the body fell apart, guts and blood spilling everywhere. Li Ziming could not bear the sight and turned his head away. "Watch carefully," Li Yuanping patted his shoulder gently and said, "Remember this scene. It will teach you what the prominent families might do behind your back if the laws are not strictly enforced." He paused and then continued, "When cultivation stagnates and the future seems bleak, when they tire of their luxuries and possess power and strength far beyond ordinary people, they will always come up with new ways to entertain themselves." Li Ziming nodded thoughtfully. Li Yuanping then sneered and said, "Bring me my bow." A Jade Court guard quickly handed him a longbow. Sitting steadily on the horse, Li Yuanping exhaled, knocked an arrow, and aimed at the people below. He said softly, "Watch closely, my son." Whoosh, the arrow shot through the air, its runes glowing with bright white light, descending like a meteor to the ground. Li Jimin, stretching his arm and holding a fruit, felt indifferent to the scene before him and seemed to be merely going through the motions. Tian Rong, who was standing beside him, stepped forward and said with a smile, "Jimin, how about this? Quite amusing, is it not?" "Very amusing," Li Jimin responded as he glanced at him with hidden disdain, thinking to himself, "The Tian family controls the politics of eastern Mount Yue. With the old man about to step down, how can I be a puppet like Shamali?" But Tian Zhongqing is cautious. To get leverage on them and negotiate, I must start with Tian Rong. He seemed to be watching the wolf demon's desperate struggle, but his mind was preoccupied with figuring out how to seize control of eastern Mount Yue's politics. Just then, a blinding white light descended from the sky. Boom! The wolf demon, barely at the first stage of the embryonic breathing realm, could not withstand the arrow and exploded into pieces, with its blood splattering everywhere. Tian Rong, who had been laughing, looked as though he had been slapped in the face. He jumped up at once and roared, "Insolence! Who dares to disrupt my entertainment?" Li Jimin had already risen and looked up. With his peak embryonic breathing realm vision, he instantly recognized the person on the mountain as his mind went blank with fear, his heart pounding in his chest. Li Yuanping. He fell to his knees with a thud, prostrating himself on the ground, his forehead pressed tightly against the earth. A surge of panic and terror washed over him, his back soaked with sweat instantly, his eyes bloodshot. The family head despises those who oppress and harm commoners. I am finished. Who set me up? Tian Zhongking. Yes, it must be the Tian family. Tian Zhongking. Damn it. No wonder he wanted me to come to this remote place for a feast. I'll remember this, Tian Rong. A wave of unease swept over the gathered Mount Yue lords, and they all kneeled on the ground. Tian Rong stood there in a daze for a few moments. After attempting to pull some of the kneeling people up, he too realized what was happening and kneeled, bewildered. Halfway up the mountain, Li Yuanping, clad in riding attire, held the delicate Li Ziming in his arms, his expression calm as he quietly observed them. "Father, they are so afraid of you. Are you going to kill them?" The boy's clear voice echoed through the mountain, sending chills down the spines of those boys. Li Jimin clenched his eyes shut, wishing he could tear Tian Rong and the Tian family to pieces. Li Yuanping steadily held the reins, leaning close to his eldest son's ear and whispered, "Number Li Jimin is a smart man, but Tian Zhongking and the Tian family are even smarter." He handed the bow to one of the Jade court guards without looking at the people kneeling below with their foreheads touching the ground, and whispered to Li Ziming, "Father will now teach you how a wise man controls a group of wise men." "All right," Li Ziming answered expectantly. Li Yuanping then smiled coldly, tugged the reins, turned the horse around, and Zhang Xiu began to walk quietly, its hoofbeats silent, slowly disappearing into the forest they had come from. The Jade court guards on both sides glanced coldly at the people below before following the horse and vanishing as well. After several breaths, Li Jimin finally raised his head and shouted, "Family head, you have unparalleled insight. I am grateful beyond words." Only the whistling wind answered him, and hatred almost overflowed from Li Jimin's eyes. "The Tian family, I Li Jimin, will never coexist with you." He stood up, glaring at Tian Rong with hatred and cursed, "You brat, you're good at pretending. Tricking me to watch this show must have taken you a lot of effort. I knew it. Li Jimin was convinced that Tian Rong had received orders from Tian Zhongking, intentionally luring him here to be seen by Li Yuanping. He drew his sword with a clang and shouted, "Scoundrel, how dare you deceive me?" Tian Rong looked utterly confused, unable to grasp what had just happened. Li Jimin's expression changed rapidly, restraining the urge to strike. He kicked Tian Rong in the shoulder, sending him flying over some distance, rolling on the ground with a pained cry. "Get lost." Watching Tian Rong flee in panic, Li Jimin's face darkened. Unlike the other Mount Yue lords, he was of Li family blood and subjected to the clan affairs courtyard's discipline. Even if Li Yuanping did not punish him, it would not be long before someone came to investigate. Thinking about the trouble ahead, Li Jimin felt a chill in his heart. Damn it. Chapter 361, Dispute Between Master and Disciple I. Li Yuanping rode his horse forward, feeling the onset of a cough as his excitement waned. The riding uniform he wore was cold and clammy from sweat. Li Ziming, sensing his father's discomfort, asked, "Father, how have you been feeling lately?" Li Yuanping did not answer. His face remained pale as he rode up to the carriage with the black flags fluttering above it. He dismounted, handing the reins to Duyi, who quickly took them. Li Yuanping then said, "Take this horse to Zicheng. It shall be his mount. Starting tomorrow, there is no need to prepare a carriage for him anymore." He bent down and entered the carriage, beginning to remove his attire. Li Ziming, understanding his father's needs, lit the brazier inside. Li Yuanping coughed twice, sat by the fire, and spoke gently. Sitting high in the hall, the letters from various towns always paint a picture of peace. Riding this horse for these past few months and seeing things with my own eyes has finally set my mind at ease. Now that we have observed Li Jiminminger, what do you think of him? Li Ziming's face, illuminated by the fire, turned a bit golden red. He poked the coals with a stick, recalling his thoughts as he finally replied, "I see him as arrogant and cold-hearted." Li Yuanping nodded in agreement, speaking softly. "In your opinion, would it be better for Mount Yue State to fall into the hands of the Tian family or Li Jimin?" Li Ziming furrowed his brow slightly and responded, "I think it makes no difference who holds it. It depends on who can give our family more benefits. The land of Mount Yue is vast, and the spirit goods and patties they send up are too few." Li Yuanping did not expect such profound insights from a child. He sighed softly and said, "It is not just Mount Yue. As our clan grows, open and hidden struggles within the 7 towns have intensified. Clashes between prominent families and branch lines are fierce. If it were not for the clan affairs courtyard and the Jade court guards maintaining order, there would be even more disgraceful incidents. The clan has existed for 5 generations. If we count from the day our forefather returned to establish it, it has been nearly a century. Achieving success is indeed easy, but maintaining a household is difficult. As father and son conversed in the carriage, the lead spirit horse snorted and stopped. Outside, Di called out, "Family head, we have reached the town." Li Yuanping led his eldest son out of the carriage. Di approached and whispered, "Family head, Chen Dong and the others are already waiting in the hall." Li Yuanping hummed an acknowledgement as he walked into the hall. Despite being only an embryonic breathing realm cultivator, the Qi cultivators inside stood up from their seats respectfully. Li Yuanping took the main seat and first looked at Chen Dong, asking politely, "Uncle, what is the situation?" Chen Dong, now in his 50s at the fourth heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm, cupped his fist and replied gently, "I have prepared my luggage and am ready to head west with Jingshan." Li Yuanping nodded in understanding as he reached over and picked up a storage pouch from the desk. He walked down the steps and handed it to Chen Dong. He then said solemnly, "These are the talismans and spirit stones prepared by the family." The town has also arranged 2 unrefined Qi cultivators from Mount Yue to assist with minor tasks. "Please take care, uncle." Chen Dong and his wife had always intended to travel. Officially, they were said to be adventuring, but in reality, they were heading west to the deserts of the Golden Feather Sect to collect Golden Yang Radiant Origin Qi. This was a secret mission. Hearing that Li Yuanping had arranged for 2 Mount Yue cultivators to accompany him, Chen Dong looked up in surprise. Li Yuanping smiled and said, "Do not worry, uncle. These 2 are heavily bound by ties and have sworn a spiritual oath. They can be trusted." Mount Yue's cultivation methods were simple and archaic, aligning with the bloodlines of its various tribes. They were easy to practice but not effective for achieving significant power. Over the years, only 5 unrefined cultivators emerged, mainly tending to spirit plants which were of limited use. To collect the Golden Yang Radiant Origin by oneself would take at least 20 years. Chen Dong naturally understood Li Yuanping's intention as he nodded in understanding and expressed his thanks. Given the presence of outsiders, he did not say much more. He simply accepted the silk pouch and took his leave. After Chen Dong left, Li Zicheng stepped forward and respectfully reported, "Family head, over the past 5 years, Eastern Mount Yue has paid its tribute. 2,100 jin of spirit patties, 200 white essence fruit, 200 jin of yellow jade spirit rice, and 11 types of various other spirit items." He paused before continuing, "The total value is 70 spirit stones. They have already been sent down the mountain." "Good," Li Yuanping nodded in approval. The Azure Pond sect barely managed the small households in the embryonic breathing and Qi cultivation realms, only collecting a small tribute to establish a hierarchy, but the taxes on clans were steep. As a clan, the Li family had to pay a tribute every 5 years, a significant amount of 10,000 jin of spirit patties, equivalent to 100 spirit stones, 500 white essence fruit, and 500 jin of yellow jade spirit rice, also worth 100 spirit stones, and an assortment of other spirit items totaling 30 spirit stones. Currently, the Li family could only produce less than half of this amount. The remaining 100+ spirit stones were a constant source of worry for Li Yuanping. In previous years, they supplemented this deficit through the Cloud Crown Peak Market, issuing tasks for external and family cultivators to collect herbs and hunt beasts. Combined with the talismans drawn by Li Xuanxuan and others, they could barely generate 40 to 50 spirit stones. Additionally, they relied on the ebony mine on their territory, which, through full exploitation, could yield another 40 to 50 spirit stones over 5 years. The rest was covered by Li Yuanping's frugal management. "Furthermore, we must provide resources for the family cultivators," Li Yuanping muttered, troubled by the modest revenue from Mount Yue as reported by Li Zicheng. He moved his cup on the desk and mumbled, "Mount Wudu still lacks a large formation and it is truly impoverished. Such annual deficits are unsustainable." Li Zicheng stood respectfully before him. Seeing that his earlier report had been fairly smooth without any signs of awkwardness, Li Yuanping could not help but ask, "What is the situation in Mount Yue?" Caught off guard, Li Zicheng hesitated for several moments before nervously replying, "The Tian family holds power. Prince Li Jimin is brave." "Enough," Li Yuanping interrupted, noting that Li Zicheng did not assertively say the Tian family rules or the Tian family controls the politics. He had completely lost interest in hearing more and kindly dismissed him. "Go and cultivate." "Yes." Li Zicheng cupped his fist and left. Li Yuanping sighed deeply, turning to look at Li Ziming, who was diligently studying nearby. He softly remarked, "Zicheng is honest and straightforward, kind and generous. In the future, if you manage the family, you can employ your Zicheng, but he cannot be given sole responsibility." Li Ziming was quite fond of his elder brother Li Zicheng, so he was at a loss for how to respond, simply burying his head in his book. Fortunately, someone came forward and reported, "Family head, there is news from the Yuan family." "Oh," Li Yuanping immediately looked up. The person continued, "Immortal Master Yuan Tuan has reached Mushroom Forest Plain and will arrive at Moongaze Lake on the full moon day of the 11th lunar month." "Good." Li Yuanping said as he clapped his hands together, instantly delighted. It was now the 3rd day of the 11th month, meaning Yuan Tuan would arrive in 12 days. He smiled and said, "Send someone to reply that our family eagerly awaits the immortal master's visit." Chapter 362, Dispute between Master and Disciple II. The reign in Linghai Prefecture was continuous. Located in the south of Yue State, it was surrounded by mountains, humid and stifling. Rainwater gathered in the valleys, often flooding the low-lying areas. A young man trudged through the water in the dense rainforest, annoyed by the constant croaking of frogs. He frowned and grumbled, "Master, why are we circling back to this godforsaken place? Who knows what madness has taken over the Azure Pond sect?" The man behind him, with wild hair and a fierce look, walked on a black mist and spoke in a hoarse voice. "They did not send even one related Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator. We have to first cross Linghai Prefecture, and then head to Yi Mountain City at the southern border. This body is already useless. If I had not practiced Blood Drinker, suppressing this body, it would have long turned into a puddle of pus from metallic essence erosion." The young man squinted his eyes and said ambiguously, "But Master, are you not searching for some special Dao foundations? If you forcefully enter Yi Mountain City, you may never return and have to keep heading south. If you reach the depths of the southern border, where will you find a body for your soul transfer?" This young man was none other than Jiang Yan, who had been missing for many years. Many cultivators were causing trouble all over Yue State under his name, while he had secretly returned to Linghai Prefecture. A trace of suspicion flashed in Jiang Yan's eyes as he asked this question tentatively. Jiang Boking, however, waved it off nonchalantly and replied, "Your master, a genius who reached the Foundation Establishment Realm at 30 and Purple Mansion Realm at 60, will figure something out when the time comes." Jiang Yan shook his head and laughed, then responded simply, "Since Master claims to be a genius who achieved Foundation Establishment Realm at 30 and Purple Mansion Realm at 60, why did you abandon the Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao and switch to practicing curses and strange scriptures?" "Damn it," the rough man groaned, his wrinkles deepening with his changing expression. He grumbled, "I was a genius back then, oblivious to the filth between the Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao. I never met anyone with the same immortal foundation as mine, always burying myself in cultivation. Later, when I reached the Purple Mansion realm, only then did I realize that the Lord of Mount Wu, Dunmu Kui, cultivated the same Dao. He controlled the body that was on the brink of collapse, his expression twisted and hideous, barely managing to smile as he continued, Dunmu Kui is a figure of overwhelming power in his era. How could I ever wait for him to make a move? It scared me so much that I immediately diminished my divine abilities and cut down my Dao foundation, seeking emptiness to create talismans. I lost most of my cultivation in the process, which is how I became like this." "Oh," Jiang Yan remained composed and asked, "What does seeking emptiness to create talismans mean?" Jiang Boking shook his head, a hint of pride on his face as he explained, "This is a method I obtained from an ancient text. It involves treating one's life divine abilities as talismans, turning one's entire cultivation along with the Dao Foundation into an immortal talisman, transitioning from the Golden Core Dao to the Shamanic Talisman Dao." A glimmer of hope appeared on his face as he continued warmly, "When I was young, I received the legacy of a predecessor from Moonlight Origin Mansion. This technique was part of it, and it is not easy to master. Only I, who sought the Supreme Shaman's 3-9 blood essence that had a close relationship with talismans, managed to succeed, turning one's entire cultivation into talismans." Jiang Yan pondered these words, then suddenly looked back, this time with tears glistening on his face as he asked in a low voice, "Master, are you now turning my cultivation into talismans?" Jiang Boking, still babbling on, suddenly froze when he heard this and cursed, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Jiang Yan, however, became more certain. His tears gradually stopped as he stared into Jiang Boking's eyes and said coldly, "Although I do not cultivate the Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao, I understand that this path cannot be easily switched. Turning a core into a talisman is already the limit. How can one so casually seize metallic essences?" His eyes glinted as he continued coldly, "If my guess is correct, Master, your metallic essence was already heavily damaged. Now that it has disintegrated, there is no more opportunity for you to seize any Dao foundation and start anew." Jiang Boking sighed loudly as his angry expression gradually calmed, turning into a look of appreciation. He said softly, "Indeed, I have no chance of seizing a body." Jiang Yan took a step back, seeing that Jiang Boking was completely unguarded. A bitter smile appeared on his face as he snarled, "It seems you and the Azure Pond sect are of the same ilk. No wonder. No wonder the Azure Pond sect, a colossal entity, could not capture even a small cultivator like me after so many years of wandering through the 5 prefectures. So much bloodshed along the way, and every time I broke through a stronghold of the Azure Pond sect, materials suitable for breakthroughs always appeared. Those resentment chi and blood chi collected dozens upon dozens of years always ended up in my hands, one gourd after another." His pupils dilated and his fists were clenched so tightly they nearly bled. He then screamed, "Jiang Boking, what a self-directed, self-acted play. You and the Azure Pawn sect each got what you wanted. You have really put on such a good show. You were never trying to see some special immortal foundation. It was just a comforting lie for me. The 3-9 true talisman in my Kihai Acupoint, the shamanic blood talisman in my Shenyang mansion, those were what you plotted for." His venomous voice echoed through the mountains, silencing Jiang Boking. Flesh fell from Jiang Boking's face in shreds. After a few moments, Jiang Boking spoke. "I was indeed close with Busey, and the Devil Plague was indeed a trade of interests between the Azure Pawn sect and myself. That is why the resentment chi and blood chi were sent to you one after another. You are a smart child, and you guessed all of these correctly." He paused, shaking his head slightly as he continued, "But my metallic essence is damaged beyond repair. No talisman or seal can save it. The 2 shamanic talismans on you are something I nurtured myself. They are exceptionally miraculous, but they are not meant for body seizing." Jiang Boking's body was covered in blood, yet his gaze remained gentle. He said softly, "Occupying this body is merely to protect you. Without special elixirs or matching techniques, it will eventually perish along with this body. I thought I could hide it from you until I sent you out of the southern border." Jiang Yan remained unmoved, taking another step back with a wary expression, his voice ice cold as he replied, "You say it is not, and I should believe you just like that. How can I trust you?" Jiang Boking frowned at him, suddenly startled. He then shouted loudly, "Hey." His lips and teeth came together, releasing a thunderous shout that made Jiang Yan's head buzz. Jiang Boking's expression changed drastically as he cursed, "Damn it, it is a divine ability." Jiang Yan's eyes cleared up and he was taken aback. Jiang Boking quickly grabbed him, lifted off into the air and shouted, "We must leave quickly. If he is using a divine ability to block us, he must be close. A Purple Mansion Realm cultivator." Jiang Yan's hair stood on end as he pushed his mana to fly, asking, "Are you not in cahoots with the Azure Pawn sect? Why would they send a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator after you? Probably an old enemy of mine." Jiang Boking's rough, wild-haired body cursed loudly, calculating in his mind, how is this possible? Who could have predicted this? They had only flown for a moment when the biting wind in the sky suddenly ceased. The wind formed from their mana stopped flowing, and streams of black light appeared in the void before them, bursting with the colorful brilliance of a Purple Mansion Realm's divine ability. "Senior Jiang," a young man said as he leisurely stepped out from within the void. He wore a simple Taoist robe, his features delicate and refined, holding an unremarkable grayish pearl in his hand. "To think that this day finally came for you, Qing Jifeng." Jiang Boking muttered as he stared at the young man, clearly surprised by his appearance and unsure of his intentions. He asked in a low voice, "What do you want?" The Purple Mansion Realm cultivator's robe fluttered as he turned the pearl in his hand gently, calmly looking at Jiang Boking. "Senior, no need to be tense. I have many questions to ask you. Perhaps about the answers to a beggar's questions under the mulberry tree, or about Sword Immortal Shangyuan, Zio shooting, Tang Yuanwu. What are you plotting? Who has the immortal book now? Everyone from Mount Changhui is very curious. Please come with me to Wu State, Senior." Chapter 363, Yuan Tuan arrives. The young Taoist had just spoken when the Dharma pearl in his hand rotated once, emitting a layer of hazy gray light. It was like the clouds and mist, continuously rising. Before the two could make any move, the gray mist had already spread, enveloping them and preventing others from peeping with their divine abilities. "Oh," Jiang Boking's gaze lingered on the gray light surrounding them for a moment before he said softly, "I do not know anything about answers to a beggar's questions under the mulberry tree. I am only familiar with Busey from the Azure Pawn sect. As for Zio shooting, he is just a somewhat skilled junior whom I have never met, so how would I know anything about him? Mount Changhui, it is one thing if you're plotting for the immortal book, but do not go thinking I am an easy target just because I am in a tight spot." Jiang Boking spat as he glared at the man with his bloodshot eyes, his face contorted in anger. "A broken ship still has 3 jin of nails. When I, Jiang Boking, was at my peak, you were just a minor Taoist in Wu's jurisdiction. Are you not afraid that I will bite back, at least ending your cultivation path?" He snarled coldly. "Senior, you must be joking." Qing Jifeng smiled slightly. With this artifact for protection, he was not afraid of being detected by the Purple Mansion Realm cultivators of Yue State, and he said leisurely, "You claim you do not know Zio shooting, but you and the Azure Pawn sect orchestrated this massacre in Lixia Prefecture. To say you have no connection with Zio shooting, I simply cannot believe it." At these words, Jiang Boking's expression changed dramatically, and Jiang Yan beside him was stunned, lifting his head in disbelief. Jiang Boking, under Jiang Yan's piercing gaze, forced himself to remain calm and replied, "That was Zio shooting and the Azure Pawn sect's scheme. I was just exploiting the situation." Qing Jifeng, having cultivated to the Purple Mansion realm, was naturally observant. He immediately sensed the fluctuation in Jiang Boking's emotions and realized something. He then turned and looked at Jiang Yan behind him as he said softly, "Young man, this person used divine ability to entice your father, bringing calamity and killing your mother, refining you as a talisman. And yet you still call him master. How absurd is that?" Seeing his pretentiousness, Jiang Boking instead calmed down and said solemnly, "What is the meaning of this, fellow Taoist?" Seeing Jiang Yan remain silent, Qing Jifeng finally turned his gaze to Jiang Boking and said softly, "I will not quibble with Senior. Answers to a beggar's questions under the mulberry tree is an immortal book. Besides Duanmu Kui, no one in Jiangnan knows it better than you, Senior. Now that Mount Wu has fallen, everyone's eyes are on you. Not just my Wu state, but even 2 of the 3 true monarchs of Yue state are watching you. Where do you think you can escape to?" Qing Jifeng's voice echoed in the air, and Jiang Boking's face was covered in blood as they dripped down silently. Qing Jifeng's words shattered Jiang Boking's self-deceptive dream, causing his expression to turn darker. The Purple Mansion Realm cultivator then shifted his gaze to Jiang Yan and said solemnly, "The father as the Yang, the 3-9 true talisman, the mother's death as Yin, the shamanic blood talisman. An excellent body indeed. If Senior is willing to come with me to Wu State, I can spare his life and give you a chance. We will just ask about the situation in Yue State, only seeking fragments of the immortal book from your memory. Once done, you can reincarnate." Qing Jifeng smiled and continued warmly, "Wu State will have its clues, and Senior will have lost your memory. It is without value anyway, and you will no longer be watched by the true monarchs. With this excellent body, you can start over and roam the world. Is that not wonderful?" Jiang Boking stared at him coldly and replied, "I have already obtained a wisp of metallic essence. There is no need to use such divine abilities to confuse me." Qing Jifeng's expression remained unchanged as he smiled and quipped, "It seems I was showing off my skills before an expert, but this offer is sincerely made and still stands." Jiang Boking hesitated for a moment, then finally answered, his voice low, "Fine, but first send my excellent body away." Qing Jifeng was immediately overjoyed and replied, "Senior is courageous. Jifeng will never break his promise." With that, he drew out a ray of colorful light, lightly capturing Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan, only able to resist the power of a Foundation Establishment realm with Jiang Boking's help, was easily captured by the Purple Mansion realm cultivator. "Wait, I will do it myself," Jiang Boking interrupted loudly. Qing Jifeng suddenly realized Jiang Boking's sincerity even more, nodding in agreement. Indeed, it is better that I do not handle this myself." At this moment, a slit appeared in the gray mist, allowing Jiang Boking to send Jiang Yan away. A Purple Mansion realm cultivator could roam the void, and though not instantly covering thousands of li, 100 li was still achievable. With Jiang Boking's metallic essence, he could send Jiang Yan 1,000 li away, completely erasing his trail. Jiang Boking grabbed the colorful light, activated the metallic essence, and unceremoniously seized control from Qing Jifeng, causing the Purple Mansion realm Taoist's eyelids to twitch. Jiang Yan, unable to speak, stared at him quietly. Jiang Boking extended his hand to open a path of black light, sending Jiang Yan away, then turned back with a broad smile to Qing Jifeng. "Senior." Qing Jifeng watched him warily. Jiang Boking simply glanced at him, saying softly, "Mount Changhui has shamanic Dao lineages. If one could obtain answers to a beggar's questions under the mulberry tree, a true monarch would surely reach a higher level." "And so what?" Qing Jifeng asked as he began to sense that something was amiss. The pearl in his hand floated up and down. Jiang Boking laughed and said, "Why don't you guess whether Pristine Water prefers the immortal book to be lost within Yue State's borders, or for the clues to be controlled by your state, subjected to external manipulation?" "Oh no, have you lost your mind?" Seeing Jiang Boking's body explode into fragments, turning into a shower of flesh and blood, Qing Jifeng was momentarily shocked. He hastily stowed the pearl and was about to make an attempt to escape into the void. Clang from the shattered body emerged a wisp of golden light, seemingly with eyes, which rushed toward the Purple Mansion realm cultivator with great speed. In an instant, the light blazed brightly, causing thousands of frogs to croak in unison and rivers to surge. Qing Jifeng was filled with disbelief as the golden light collided with his body, the void around them sealed by the metallic essence. He could only manage to let out a final cry, "You are throwing your life away." In the 11th lunar month, the snow on Mount Wudu was thick and white, covering the stone table with snowflakes, and the rocks in the courtyard were also blanketed in white. A young man in fine clothes and a white fur coat reclined on a redwood chair, silently holding a jade cup between 2 fingers. Jir, a woman with thin eyebrows and phoenix eyes, dressed in red, spoke warmly, her expression showing signs of fatigue. "Have you packed?" "Yes." Li Zijai responded softly, adding, "What about father?" "Your father has gone to Lijiang Town. The immortal master is coming, and there are many things to prepare. A carriage will come to fetch you soon," Zhao Gilwen explained softly, observing her son's disappointment. She attempted to comfort Li Zijai, but the boy's expression did not change. He focused his gaze on the cup in his hand, speaking in a low voice. Kingsui Peak is sparsely populated, with only an empty reputation. As the senior brother of the peak, I am afraid there will be endless troubles in the future. While his words explained his worries, his heart was filled with bitterness which he did not dare to share with his mother. Hearing that Yuan Tuan was coming, Li Yunjiao finally showed his eldest son the clan's internal records. Li Zijai read the book all night, his expression changing several times. The entanglements between Kai Wei, Kai Jian, and Yunwu Peak and Li Qijing's tragic end filled his heart with anguish, leaving him silent and troubled as he thought to himself, so many entanglements within the sect. With this reputation, I am afraid I will become a pawn in their struggles. He silently gripped the sword at his waist, set down the jade cup, and responded, "Once I join the sect, I will do my utmost." Chapter 364, Yuan Tuan arrives II. As Li Zijai pondered, someone arrived from below. This person wore simple clothes and had some snowflakes on his shoulders, and he appeared to be in a hurry. He hastily brushed the snow off his body, first bowed to Xiao Giluan at the top, then called out loudly, "Brother Zhai." Li Zijai quickly stood up and walked over to greet him, asking, "Brother Cheng, what brings you here?" Li Zicheng, covered in dust and wearing thin clothes without any accessories, cheerfully took out a jade pendant from his chest pocket and smiled. "I heard you are about to join the sect, so I found something good for you." He had not received the talisman seed and was oblivious to many family secrets. He only saw joining the Azure Pond sect as an immensely beneficial thing and proudly presented the jade pendant, which glowed with a green light. He placed it in Li Zijai's hand while explaining with a smile, "This is an embryonic breathing realm Dharma artifact, capable of condensing spiritual qi. Consider it a gift from your elder brother." Li Zijai was momentarily stunned. His father was Li Yunjiao and his grandfather was Li Xuanxuan, the leaders of the Li family for generations. He lacked for nothing of such trinkets, but seeing Li Zicheng's joyous expression filled him with mixed feelings. Li Zicheng's father had no spiritual orifice, and his grandfather had died early, making their lives much harder. This jade pendant was a precious item to his elder brother, who forced it into Li Zijai's hand. Looking at his brother's simple attire without any mana light, yet still looking at him warmly, Li Zijai held the jade pendant tightly as strong emotions surged in his heart. Feeling as if it were a burning coal and not knowing what to say, he stammered, "Brother Cheng, you shouldn't have." Li Zicheng, who had spent the past few months overseeing spirit patties in the mountains, had gained some experience and spoke more confidently. He laughed and said, "Your elder brother now holds a position in the clan and receives stipends. Do not refuse my gift." His tone was warm, but Li Zijai felt even more conflicted. He grabbed his brother's hand, having long wanted to speak with him, and said softly, "I heard that your expenses are tight and your pockets are empty. The family's resources and your stipends are half given away and half lent to the clan brothers. Is that true?" "Well," Li Zicheng hesitated, stammering, "I'm just helping out the brothers. The clan has been going through tough times lately and everyone is struggling." Oh, Li Zijai had no idea what to say. He embraced his elder brother firmly in his broad chest as he jokingly reminded him, "You should be more frugal. Be careful or the clan chief might accuse you of being a spendthrift and a big spender." Li Zicheng chuckled softly, but Li Zijai wasn't sure if he heeded the advice. A servant stepped forward and respectfully informed, "Young master, the carriage has arrived." Upon hearing this, Li Zijai nodded slightly. He looked at Li Zicheng's beaming smile, and all his previous frustration vanished, now replaced by determination and anticipation. Lijing Town. Li Yunjiao, clad in black, stood silently in the snow, his sword by his side. Snowflakes fell on him, only to slide off shortly after. Li Zijai stood beside him, gazing absent-mindedly at the horizon. The Li family members waited for a moment. Amidst the swirling snow, a Taoist in green robes arrived riding a deer. The woman appeared to be in her 30s, radiating an extraordinary. The deer beneath her had pure white fur and was adorned with spots of green, and moved with grace and agility. Its eyes were lively. The woman on the deer wore fluttering robes, giving her a celestial appearance. Around her waist, a long ribbon was tied, fluttering constantly in the wind. The ribbon had intricate patterns, light and transparent, clearly a fine Dharma artifact. Members of the Li family greet the Peak Master. The Li family members greeted her respectfully as Yuan Tuan smiled and nodded. As soon as the white deer touched the ground and kicked its 4 hooves, it turned into a patch of white snow and disappeared. This miraculous display left the Li family and their guests in silent awe. Yuan Tuan responded, "No need for formalities." Yuan Tuan, who was around the same age as Li Tongya, had reached the Qi cultivation realm at 18, even faster than his senior brother, Xiao Yuanci. However, for reasons unknown, after achieving the Qi cultivation realm, she focused on talismans and spirit plants, causing the progress of her cultivation to suffer. At that time, their master, Si Yunbai, was imprisoned, and her senior and junior brothers were all in the southern border. Yuan Tuan had to support Kingsui Peak alone, enduring much hardship. Fortunately, in the past decade, she made several breakthroughs and achieved the foundation establishment realm. Life improved significantly for her since then. Please come inside, immortal master, Li Yunjiao said politely. Yuan Tuan nodded gently and walked gracefully across the snow. The guest cultivators and other family members withdrew, leaving only a few direct descendants to accompany Yuan Tuan inside. Her gaze lingered on the sword at Li Yunjiao's waist for a moment, then she turned her head slightly, feeling somewhat uncomfortable. Is that the Qingche sword? She asked softly. Indeed. Li Yunjiao had replaced the sword at his waist, the dragon coiling pillar, with the Qingche sword. He removed its covering, proudly displaying it instead of hiding it like he usually did. This sword. Yuan Tuan's expression turned complex, and she said in a low voice, I accompanied my master to acquire this sword for him. At the time, our peak was struggling, and we could only afford a peak Qi cultivation realm Dharma artifact. Yet Jinger was overjoyed and thanked us profusely. Who would have thought that this sword, after slaying demons and absorbing sword intent, silently advanced and became a foundation establishment realm Dharma artifact? The Li family members listened silently. Yuan Tuan raised her eyebrows, glanced at Li Yunjiao, and asked, Since you wearing this sword at your waist, you must be the head of the Li family. Li Yunjiao had rehearsed his response many times. He answered respectfully, Lord Qijing had no descendants. I, a junior of the Yuan generation named Jiao, am considered his successor and thus wear this sword. No descendants, huh? Yuan Tuan barely maintained her expression, standing in place for 2 full breaths before following Li Yunjiao's lead to the seat of honor. She silently scanned the faces of the crowd and then asked warmly, Why do I not see Taoist Tangya? Li Yunjiao lowered his head slightly and said in a deep voice, The ancestor is in seclusion and has yet to emerge. Yuan Tuan nodded, then saw Li Yunjiao signal with his eyes. Li Zijai stepped forward and said respectfully, Junior Li Zijai greets senior. Good. Yuan Tuan finally showed a hint of a smile. She scanned him with her spiritual sense, observing for a while, carefully examining his Qihai, Shenyang mansion, and Juk court acupoints, and then closed her eyes without saying a word. This sight made everyone in the hall silently tense up. Li Zijai forced himself to stay calm, feeling the profound pearl talisman seed in his Qihai acupoint, his heart pounding. After more than 10 breaths, Yuan Tuan finally opened her eyes and nodded. Not bad, you should join my Kingsui Peak. She then smiled brightly at Li Zijai and said, Good child, there is no need to be nervous. With these words, everyone finally relaxed and felt relieved. Li Zijai respectfully thanked her as Yuan Tuan looked at him with a smile and said softly, Raise your head. Li Zijai's face, similar to Li Yunjiao's, showed a gentle and peaceful demeanor when he lowered his eyes. But when he raised his head, his ambitious look appeared, making Yuan Tuan smile lightly and say, Your appearance does resemble your father. You have quite a fierce look and the potential to lead. It seems I have indeed picked up a treasure. Senior is too kind to my son. Li Yunjiao responded quietly and said, Being able to join Kingsui Peak is a blessing for the Li family. Yes, Yuan Tuan nodded, then asked, I heard your family has a young alchemist. Is he here? Chapter 365, Azure Manifestation I. Yuan Tuan had just finished speaking when Li Ziming stepped forward, drawing everyone's attention. He wore loose white robes and appeared quite dignified, though his voice still sounded somewhat immature. Junior Li Ziming greets senior. Yuan Tuan looked at him carefully, the long ribbon at her waist gently fluttering. She smiled and said, I heard from my senior brother that there is an alchemist with a harmonious aura, blending together both water and fire. Now that I see you, you are indeed a fine seedling. With that, she took Li Ziming's hand and asked warmly, Do you have a suitable alchemy furnace, Minger? Li Ziming was slightly taken aback and looked at Li Yunjiao, who gave a slight nod before he replied, Yes, senior, I already have one. The Li family's alchemy furnace had been taken by Li Tangya from someone else when the market fell many years ago, and it was at the Qi cultivation realm. At that time, the Li family was still weak, and Li Tangya feared that possessing such a treasure would bring trouble, hence it had been sealed away for many years. Now that the Li family's foundation was stable and they had an alchemist, the furnace finally saw the light of day, though its presence was known only to a few direct descendants. Upon hearing this, Yuan Tuan paused as she rubbed her storage pouch at her waist, sensing the alchemy furnace inside. She could not help but laugh bitterly to herself. This is awkward. I have owed Yundan Peak a favor for nothing. The Li family had only been established for less than 100 years, so Yuan Tuan did not expect them to have an alchemy furnace ready. She thought for a moment, then took off a jade bead from her wrist which was tied with a red string and put it around Li Ziming's wrist. She then smiled warmly. Consider this my gift to you, Minger. Li Yunjiao noticed the brilliant radiance of the jade bead and knew instantly that it was no ordinary item. He was delighted but quickly said modestly, Peak Master, how can we accept this? Yuan Tuan laughed, looking at Li Ziming's serious little face, liking him more and more. She then explained, "This item was my protective treasure during my years as a Qi cultivator, and it is called Azure Manifestation. It has been tempered by my cultivation method for many years and possesses some spiritual abilities. It can transform into an eagle, dog, tiger, or deer, making it an excellent Dharma artifact for those at the embryonic breathing and Qi cultivation realms. Now that I have achieved the immortal foundation, Azure Crest Manifestation, and nurtured it for 2 years, it has become even more miraculous, almost a foundation establishment realm artifact. The abilities of Azure Crest Manifestation overlap with this item, so I no longer need it, and so I will give it to Ming'er." Li Yunjiao could tell that Yuan Tuan had originally intended to give an alchemy furnace as a favor, but now that she had given the jade bead instead, it must be of equal value. Alchemy furnaces were rare and priceless, and this jade bead being comparable was extraordinary. He immediately said, "Quickly thank the immortal master." "Thank you, senior," Li Ziming replied earnestly. Yuan Tuan nodded before extending her delicate hand, and released a faint white light that enveloped them, isolating them from the outside. She then asked seriously, "Are you aware of the chaos caused by the devil plague?" Li Yunjiao immediately became alert, and Li Yuanping, Li Zicheng, along with the others also pricked up their ears in attention. Li Yunjiao replied, "Our family is located in northern Yue and has heard some news. It is said that Jiang Yan committed all kinds of evil, spreading the devil Dao lineage everywhere. These teachings have even spread among rogue cultivators and commoners, causing widespread chaos, especially in the south, which suffered greatly." "Correct." Yuan Tuan nodded and continued in a low voice. "Although Jiang Yan opposed our sect, he practiced the shamanic Dao, not the devil Dao as rumored. Moreover, he has been missing for many years. The devil plague must have another cause." Li Yunjiao frowned slightly and replied, "Senior, you mean to say that the devil plague in Yue State is caused by someone who deliberately spread the devil Dao lineage? Is anyone in the sect going to suppress and resolve it?" Yuan Tuan's expression was difficult to read as she said softly, "No, but there are concerns among the peaks. We fear that if the devil plague is left unchecked, it will eventually lead to a tragedy like that of Pingaming Ford." The great battle between the immortals and devils took place at Pingaming Ford, causing heaven and earth to collapse, mountains and rivers to submerge, and the divine continent to sink. This led to the immortal cultivators abandoning the north, the invasion of the Jai people, and the widespread influence of Buddhism, resulting in the current situation. Li Yunjiao nodded silently, understanding the gravity of the situation. Yuan Tuan then advised, "In recent years, we have repeatedly found traces of devil cultivators in the mushroom forest plain, and we have even lost 2 Qi cultivation realm disciples. It seems the situation is worsening and moving north. Please keep an eye on this. Thank you for the reminder, senior." Seeing Li Yunjiao's respectful response and knowing he took this matter to heart, Yuan Tuan's delicate fingers emitted a trace of azure light. As soon as it touched the ground, it transformed into 2 white deer, blinking their eyes and standing still. Yuan Tuan then said softly, "Good disciple, follow me back to the peak." Li Zijai hurriedly bade farewell to his parents and brothers, then mounted the white deer and soared into the clouds. Yuan Tuan gracefully mounted on the back of the deer as well and said softly, "If you wish to send a letter to the sect, send it to the Yuan family. The favor of the predecessors will eventually fade, so work hard on your cultivation." Her voice lingered in the air as the 2 white deer stepped on the clouds and disappeared without a trace. The remaining people looked up, and Li Yuanping finally spoke. "Azure Crest Manifestation truly has the demeanor of an immortal. I wonder which lineage it belongs to." The 2 exchanged glances, both pleased with the smooth proceedings and the gifts they had received. Li Zijian leaned over to Li Ziming curiously and said, "Brother, let us see your fine Dharma artifact." Li Ziming nodded eagerly, having been excited for a while but trying to maintain the family's dignity without showing joy in front of Yuan Tuan. His eyes sparkled as he activated his mana, and the jade bead glowed slightly, then emitted a stream of azure light that drifted to the ground. The azure light transformed into a white deer, about the size of a cat, looking very lively and blinking at the people. Li Zijian laughed, flipped onto the deer's back, and attempted to ride it. The spirit deer, however, would not comply, darting left and right actively and trying to hide behind Li Ziming. Li Zijian laughed, grabbing its antlers and playfully wrestling with the spirit deer, while Li Ziming held the bead and grinned. First stage of embryonic breathing realm. Li Yunjiao muttered as he scanned the spirit deer with his spiritual sense, still dressed completely in black. Li Yuanping nodded and replied, "It should be related to the cultivation level of the bead holder." "Ming'er," Li Yuanping called out, and Li Ziming hurriedly brought the Dharma bead over, reluctantly handing it to Li Yunjiao. Li Yunjiao took the Dharma artifact, Azure Manifestation, and channeled his mana into it. After a few moments he remarked, "It has some spirituality. It has already recognized its master." He then handed the jade bead back to Li Ziming. Li Ziming, whose eyes had been glued to the bead, was overjoyed at this and tied it back onto his wrist. After sending off the children among the generation of Zion Yue, several clan guards entered the hall for the night watch. The two men sat down at a small table, and Li Yuanping said in a low voice, "The devil plague is approaching. I reviewed the clan's situation recently and wanted to discuss it with you, big brother." "All right," Li Yunjiao replied. Li Yuanping began, "There are currently 6 Qi cultivators in the clan. Big brother is at the 6th heavenly layer of Qi cultivation realm, big sister at the 5th heavenly layer, Uncle Dong is currently away from home, father is at the 3rd heavenly layer, sister-in-law Gilwen and my mother are at the 1st heavenly layer. Besides the main lineage, there's also a Qi cultivator in the branch lineage named Li Wen, who has just broken through. He's from the Jade Court Guards, specializing in protective duties." He paused, then called out to the clan guard, "Summon the battalion commander." The person acknowledged his command and retreated while Li Yuanping continued. "External cultivators Tian Yaodao, Tian Zhongqing, and Su Gongming are all at the 1st heavenly layer of Qi cultivation realm, and guest cultivator Zhayan is at the 7th heavenly layer. As for unrefined Qi cultivators similar to Li Keyang, there are 7 to 8 of them, mainly from Mount Yue. Facing a Qi cultivation realm devil cultivator would be a death sentence for them." After hearing this, Li Yunjiao said in a deep voice, "Excluding our uncle and father who are not at home, there are 6 early-stage Qi cultivators, 2 mid-stage and 1 late-stage." "Correct," Li Yuanping confirmed with a nod. Just then, a robust, tall man with a rough face and strong build entered, kneeling powerfully with an aura that could push down golden mountains and jade pillars. Court guard Li Wen greets family head and clan uncle. Chapter 366, Azure Manifestation, II. The treatment for Jade Court Guards was equivalent to that of a battalion commander, so Li Wen had sufficient resources for his cultivation. He had also been practicing the rapid cultivation method, guardian of the courtly path, and was now just over 30. Li Yuanping quickly called him to rise and explained to his elder brother, "This man has been in seclusion and breaking through in recent years, so he may seem unfamiliar to you, big brother." Li Yunjiao nodded and asked, "Which branch are you from?" Li Wen replied, "My great-grandfather was the younger brother of Li Mushan, the youngest son of Li Zhenshui, and the elder of the 4 branches." Seeing this sturdy man's face full of pride and chanting this lineage fluently, Li Yunjiao found it both amusing but headache-inducing and quickly interrupted, "I understand, so you are from the youngest son of ancestor Zhenshui's line." Li Wen nodded proudly, the fluent recitation indicating he often spoke of it. Li Yunjiao took out a bottle of pills from his storage pouch and placed it into Li Wen's hand, saying lightly, "Consider this a greeting gift from your clan uncle." "Thank you, clan uncle." Li Wen bowed again and murmured his thanks before retreating. "He seems honest," Li Yunjiao remarked, watching his retreating figure. Li Yuanping, his face pale, nodded and hinted, "The branch lineage has many people, but their talent is lacking. Among so many, only he has emerged, and even among the unrefined Qi cultivators, there is only Uncle Keyang." "Indeed." Li Yunjiao nodded, placing the jade cup on the table. "It does seem too few, which might raise suspicions," he commented with a sigh. After all, the main lineage of the Li family consistently produced children with spiritual orifices, each generation more talented than the last. Although the 2 main branches had many descendants, including many mortals, somewhat balancing the high ratio, the branch lineage had been too lackluster, producing no notable talents for many years. Such a thing could arouse suspicion among those with ulterior motives. "What is your suggestion, Brother Ping?" Li Yunjiao asked earnestly. Li Yuanping had already made his plans but still looked to his elder brother, Li Yunjiao, for confirmation. Hearing the question, Li Yuanping nodded slowly and answered, "We approach it from 2 angles. For the branch lineage, reduce their households under charges and encourage cultivators to marry into the main lineage, changing their surnames. For the main lineage, expand the branches and increase the population. I have been working on these matters for the past few years." Li Yuanping paused, his expression somewhat grim as he explained, "After all, abolishing the ancestral temple is a significant matter. It strikes a painful blow to the branch lineage. Changing the surname from Li to Yi and expelling them is extremely painful for the branch lineage, comparable only to death. This needs to be done gradually." Li Yunjiao nodded, staring into Li Yuanping's eyes as he said softly, "I have a good method. I would like to hear the details." Li Yuanping chipped as he looked up. Seeing this, Li Yunjiao began, "Nowadays, there are more and more wastrels and ruffians among the branch lineage. Although the clan affairs courtyard has many cultivators, they cannot spend all their cultivation time managing the clan members, and they are gradually becoming overwhelmed. Several fools are even being played around by the prominent families." His voice was low, almost drifting in the air as he continued, "Should there be a war, we could mobilize the clan disciples as soldiers and generals according to tradition. This would eliminate the weak and retain the strong, cleansing our family and greatly reducing our burden." Li Yunjiao had fought on the battlefield in his youth, beheading many in Mount Yue. At that time, Li Yuanping had not yet been born. By the time he took charge, Li Yunjiao had already restrained his nature, discussing matters with him day and night without showing any ferocity. Now, hearing these words, Li Yuanping understood why their father, Li Xuanxuan, always said that Li Yunjiao had too strong of a killing intent. He silently took a deep breath and asked, "Who would we fight?" "It does not necessarily have to be a war, it is just an idea," Li Yunjiao chuckled, his eyes fixed on the letter from Eastern Mount Yue on the table. He then said warmly, "Eastern Mount Yue is now also occupied by the bloated and useless clans. Back then, we needed these clans to restrain Shamali. Now that the Tian family has succeeded, keeping them around is just allowing them to embezzle spirit resources and occupy spirit fields." He sipped some tea and said softly, "First, eliminate the parasites in the clan. Second, deal with the lords of Mount Yue. These matters must be resolved before the devil plague arrives to prevent our family from becoming weak and allowing these parasites to grow unchecked." The Zhao family, Xianyu Peak. The cold water in the clear pool rippled slightly, and the spiritual grass on the shore grew crookedly. Zhao Shooting rode a rainbow light out of the void and sat on a rock at the highest peak. The Supreme Shaman's 3-9 blood essence is truly magnificent. Zhao Shooting stroked his beard, filled with emotion. The golden light had flashed in the void for over 10 breaths, alarming all the Purple Mansion Realm cultivators in the Wu and Yue states. Witnessing the once-in-a-century spectacle of the metallic essence dissipating filled them with awe. Qing Jifeng is still young and judges others by himself. He really thought these Purple Mansion Realm cultivators, no matter how far they advanced, would always be afraid of death and submit to his Mount Changhui. Thinking of Qing Jifeng's shocked and terrified face when he was solidly hit by the Supreme Shaman's metallic essence, Zhao Shooting felt quite pleased. Jiang Boking. Since the fall of Dunmu Kui and the loss of answers to a beggar's questions under the mulberry tree, he knew he did not have much time left. He was just unwilling to die without trying to break through one last time. Zhao Shooting reflected. Back then, Jiang Boking materialized in the void of Lixia Prefecture, his aura comparable to the peak of the Purple Mansion Realm. This terrifying presence had left the Purple Mansion Realm cultivators of the Azure Pond sect paralyzed with fear. They could only watch helplessly as Jiang Boking manipulated them like puppets, not daring to utter a word. Looking back at today, he had been surviving under the jurisdiction of Azure Pond sect for over 10 years, forced to damage his own metallic essence in order to seize Dao foundations and flee in all directions. In the end, he had to sacrifice his own life only to severely injure a junior, which was truly lamentable. Such bad luck. Just when Dunmu Kui fell, he also met his end, becoming a target for everyone and losing his chance for reincarnation. Zhao Shooting took out a white jade fishing rod and placed it on the rock. Just as he was about to use his divine ability to see if there was anything valuable nearby, a warm voice sounded in his ear. "Welcome back to the mountain, ancestor. UNC is here to pay his respects." Zhao Shooting's face showed a trace of helplessness. Despite his attempts to avoid him, Zhao UNC still found him. In a hoarse voice he said, "Come up." Before long, Zhao UNC, dressed in white and emanating a medicinal fragrance, flew up. It seemed he had just finished refining a batch of pills. He landed in front of Zhao Shooting and greeted respectfully. UNC greets the ancestor and congratulates the ancestor on attaining advanced mastery of divine abilities. Seeing his overly formal and stiff demeanor, Zhao Shooting could not help but laugh inwardly. He asked, "Are you here because of Li Tongya?" Ancestor is perceptive, UNC is impressed. Zhao UNC replied as he continued to stand respectfully. Zhao Shooting had to put down the white jade fishing rod and said gruffly, "I have done my best. Li Tongya's fate is sealed. The Purple Mansion Realm cultivators pushed him to that place, which is beyond my power to change anything." Then he recounted the entire cause and effect of the matter with the wrathful Maha, finally saying, "I have already tried my best to alter fate. Since Li Tongya's fate cannot be changed, we can only use him to gain more benefits. Our Zhao family has some ties with his family, but not enough to offend numerous Purple Mansion Realm cultivators and disrupt years of plans for his sake." Having heard the whole story, Zhao UNC could not help but exclaimed, "Why Li Tongya?" Zhao Shooting sneered and said in a low voice, "Perhaps it is because his fate is both fragrant and beautiful, or maybe because of his position at the junction of the north and south, making him convenient to manipulate, or perhaps he was a resource prepared by the Maha years ago." He then paused slightly, as if thinking of something, and a scene from the void on that day flashed in his mind. He silently added in his heart, "Perhaps it's not just to lure the wrathful Maha using Li Tongya, but to test some other existence." Seeing Zhao UNC's silent and thoughtful appearance, Zhao Shooting shook his head and sighed. It is a pity that idiot Liu Changdi ran from east to west, then from west to south, desperately trying to traverse the entire Yue state, mixing up all the fates, making it impossible to deduce anything accurately. By now, there are already more than a dozen Purple Mansion Realm cultivators in Jiangnan who want to kill him with a single slap. They complain in the east, curse in the west, all barely able to restrain their anger. Zhao Shooting chuckled as if recalling something amusing, leaving Zhao Yuanci confused. He only heard the name Liu Changdi but did not understand what everything else meant. Chapter 367, Guest from Afar I. Li Jimin rode to Lijiang Town on horseback but returned to Wudu City in a carriage. The clan affairs courtyard's enforcer was an embryonic breathing realm cultivator. Despite Li Jimin's own cultivation, he was still flogged until his skin was torn and flesh lacerated. Several unsmiling elders of the clan affairs courtyard deliberated amongst themselves for a while before concluding with a judgment of negligence of duty and indulgence of the prominent families. Not only was Li Jimin flogged 70 times, but his reputation was also thoroughly tarnished. The Tian family members naturally rushed to the clan affairs courtyard. Tian Zhongqing stepped forward and repeatedly apologized, and Li Jimin accepted it with a smile, but Tian Zhongqing felt a chill down his spine. Meanwhile, even though the clan affairs courtyard and Li Yuanping's central hall gave no specific instructions to his family, they still broke out in cold sweat. As the head of the Tian family in the eye of the storm, Tian Zhongqing felt a lump in his throat, and the joy of advancing to the Qi cultivation realm vanished. He drove back to eastern Mount Yue overnight, smashing the porcelain in the courtyard in anger. He also had to stop his uncle, Tian Yaodao, from slapping Tian Rong to death. "Get out, you wretch." With Tian Yaodao's roar, Tian Rong slunk away, clutching his swollen cheek. It was only then did Tian Zhongqing release his uncle's hand. Deep down, he did not want to stop Tian Yaodao, thinking it would be better if his uncle could end Tian Rong with one slap. When the old man's slap only made Tian Rong stagger, Tian Zhongqing knew that his uncle still cared for his only son. After finishing the act, he said in a low voice, "Uncle, what should we do now?" Tian Yaodao, an elder of the Li family, had progressed from the embryonic breathing realm to the Qi cultivation realm and held significant seniority in the clan. He sighed deeply and said glumly, "Li Jimin is a petty man who already held a grudge against our family in the first place. Now that this has happened, it has only deepened his grudge." The uncle and nephew were both Qi cultivators and led the largest external force within the Li family. They had always been cautious. Who could have imagined that while Tian Zhongqing was in seclusion and Tian Yaodao was away, Tian Rong would cause such a disaster? Tian Zhongqing sighed and said softly, "I clearly gave instructions. How did he manage to run off?" Now Li Jimin has the support of many Mount Yue lords. If there are any changes in the future, Tian Yaodao sat at the head, and he was now over 70 years old and well experienced. Stroking his beard and pondering deeply, he said, "This matter is peculiar. Let me talk to the family head and clarify things. If the clan has any plans, we will cooperate accordingly." Since Tian Yaodao was Li Xuanfeng's maternal uncle, he held significant seniority in the family, giving him the authority to speak on such matters. Seeing this, Tian Zhongqing could not help but feel a sense of relief. Only uncle can speak like this in the clan. "Zhongqing," Tian Yaodao called softly, and Tian Zhongqing quickly looked up. The uncle and nephew exchanged a solemn glance, and Tian Yaodao said gravely, "Speaking of this, our family's current power and prestige seem to come from us breaking through to the Qi cultivation realm one after another, making the Tian family a mainstay and earning the trust of the main family to control Mount Yue. But Zhongqing," he looked at his nephew and said softly, "You must understand. Our family's power and prestige rests solely on me." Tian Zhongqing nodded heavily as he understood the gravity of his words. He had established his own family for many years. After fathering many children of his own, he had become much more mature. He replied in a low voice, "The Ren and Du families are tied to the first lineage of the main family. Now that they have Lord Ximing, they eagerly follow him. The Liu family has declined, and the Su family focuses solely on military loyalty, not leaning east or west, so there is nothing for them to worry about. But our Tian family." Tian Yaodao was Li Xuanfeng's maternal uncle, and the Tian family had always been led by the third lineage of the main family. However, Li Xuanfeng had gone to Yi Mountain City in the southern border and had no heirs, leaving the Tian family without support. Li Xuanfeng said he was going to guard Yi Mountain City, but few who went there ever returned. Hence, everyone had silently assumed that he would never come back. The other prominent families were indifferent to this, but the Tian family was secretly worried. Indeed, Tian Yaodao shook his head and replied, "I fear that one day if something were to happen to me, the Tian family will be dismembered like the Liu family." Tian Zhongqing hesitated for a moment and asked softly, "Uncle, what do you think of the eldest son?" Among the Zai and Yue generation of the Li family, Li Zicheng was the eldest. Li Zijai was the third. Li Ximing and Li Zijin were the seventh and eighth respectively, and the rest included one daughter and 3 sons who were all mortals and were sent down the mountain. Li Zicheng was currently managing affairs in Mount Yue, making him the only son of the Li family to work outside the mountain. He was from the second lineage of the main family Li Tongya's line. Tian Zhongqing, who had frequent interactions with him, explained, "The eldest son is very magnanimous, generous, and kind. If the Tian family were to marry a daughter to him as a concubine and I sincerely foster a relationship with him, aligning ourselves with the secondary lineage, we might find great support." The second lineage had once declined, lacking support from the maternal family, making him an excellent choice. Tian Yaodao nodded as he took a sip of tea and replied, "Go ahead and give it a try. Establish a good relationship first. I see that he has more than enough magnanimity but lacks firmness, making him easy to rely on. If you gain his trust, the family will be secure for generations." In the grand hall with many guards, Li Yuanping sat cross-legged in a brocade robe. The meditation cushion beneath him emitted white light, helping him concentrate and avoid distractions. Family head. "A letter has arrived from the Western Road," a clan guard at the lower seat quietly announced, seeing that Li Yuanping was cultivating in the hall and dared not approach. Li Yuanping had rare moments of leisure in recent days, which allowed him to cultivate. Although the gains were minimal, it was better than nothing. "Bring it up." Li Yuanping exhaled as he reached out to take the letter, using a specific spell to open the secret letter. He unfolded it and read, "Dong has reached the Western Desert, a place called the Smoke Valley Desert. The two followers are respectful and without issue. There are many passes here, and we are staying as guests at the Smoke Valley Temple under the jurisdiction of the Golden Feather sect. The three of us will work together, and in 7 years we can return with the Qi." Excellent. Seeing that there was a way to collect the Golden Yang Radiant Origin Qi in the West, Li Yuanping was overjoyed. He looked at the small letter in his hand and asked, "Where did this come from?" Reporting to family head, "It was carried by an unrefined Qi cultivator merchant on the road," the clan guard replied. Li Yuanping nodded in understanding before taking a brush and wrote a large "excellent," along with some words of encouragement and language to express his gratitude. He sealed it with his own Dharma seal and handed it to Du Yi with a single command. "Reward him with some spirit patties and let him take it back." In this world, communication was not supposed to be so troublesome. This was without mentioning ancient times where it was said that 1,000 years ago, there were communication talismans and similar items. But later, for unknown reasons, these talismans either lost their effectiveness or became prohibitively expensive, and not many used them anymore. Collecting his thoughts, Li Yuanping refocused his attention on family affairs. Mount Yue is easy to handle. A few days ago, Li Yunjiao mentioned this matter and had discussed it in detail with Li Yuanping before returning to the mountain for cultivation. Now, Li Yuanping focused his concentration on figuring out how to solve these two issues. Li Yuanping had long been dissatisfied with Mount Yue and had secretly made arrangements. However, he found that dealing with the clan's many disciples was a headache, if it really comes to what Big Brother said. Where would we find another place? Li Yuanping sorted the letters on the table, gathering intelligence from nearby families. Chapter 368, Guest from Afar II. The Yu family had been quiet recently. Yu Muga was busy organizing the clan, killing some members some days and releasing others the next. Despite the numerous brothers, they could not fight back at all and were slaughtered like lambs daily. He really dares to kill. Li Yuanping mumbled as he looked at the list of names and pursed his lips. He thought to himself and concluded that although Yu Muga enjoyed the killing, he had left behind many hidden dangers. Shaking his head, he turned his attention back to the families on the eastern shore. There were more than a dozen families scattered along the eastern shore, though most were small families at the embryonic breathing or Qi cultivation realms. The situation was quite complex with many entanglements, so few people dared to interfere. Both the northern and eastern shores of Moongaze Lake used to be the territory of the Golden Tang Gate, and the eastern shore families had numerous connections with the Golden Tang Gate. Although the gate had weakened and lost this territory, some relationships remained. This was one factor. Another factor was that the eastern shore families held several valuable ore veins and spirit springs, and all were secretly controlled by the Xiao family from the west. Xiao family members guarded these places under the guise of guest cultivators, enabling them the power to maintain the situation while profiting from it. This arrangement should not have been allowed, but the Azure Pawn sect had turned a blind eye to this. The Xiao family preferred to see the situation fragmented, and so this arrangement remained for years. Moreover, Moongaze Lake bordered the Xiao family's territory. These families maintained the buffer zone, bordering the Golden Tang Gate to the north and the Li and Ding families to the south. The competition among various forces made the area highly sensitive. These factors combined to maintain the status quo among the Eastern Shore families, with no significant changes for 100 years. When the Jiang family prospered, they supported them, and when the Yu family dominated, they supported them. Now, with the Yu family's decline and a tripartite power structure on the lake, each family sought its own protector. Back when the market collapsed and the Yu family declined, our family had the opportunity to take over some tributary families. However, we were understaffed at the time and only wanted to bide our time, so we missed our chance. Li Yuanping thought for a moment, his heart stirring with ambition. He thought to himself, now that our family's finances are tight, if we could intervene, we could gain some tributes and support some forces on the eastern shore. While considering the feasibility of this idea, he called to Du Yi at the lower seat. Go to the clan affairs courtyard and get me a report on the eastern shore families. Du Yi quickly nodded and hurried off. Unexpectedly, another person ran up from below and said respectfully, reporting to family head, there is a cultivator seeking an audience on the road. A cultivator on the road. Li Yuanping was slightly taken aback. Knowing that anyone who was reported up to the hall must not be any simple or trivial matter, he took this seriously. What is their cultivation level? Are they seeking something? He asked. The clan guard hesitated and answered. According to Master N, the person is likely not a Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao cultivator. They wear a robe with cuffed sleeves and appear youthful. I heard that their aura far surpasses the Foundation establishment realm. As for their business here, they insist on seeing you personally. Njayan had seen powerful figures like Yu Xiaogui and Li Tongya in the past, and could roughly estimate the strength of Foundation establishment realm cultivators. Hearing that this person far surpassed the Foundation establishment realm made Li Yuanping's expression fall solemn. Not a Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao cultivator, seeking my presence. Li Yuanping was momentarily stunned and then said sternly, go and inform Brother Jiao, but no need to have him come over. Let him keep watch on the mountain. Have Master N and others ready to suppress this person in case they suddenly act up. Li Yuanping's face looked somewhat. He always despised unexpected troubles, especially when the other party, despite politely visiting, had a cultivation far beyond the Foundation establishment realm. If they caused trouble, the Li family could not handle it. Damn it. He cursed in frustration, then exhaled and said softly, escort him to the side hall to wait. Yes, Du Yi responded as the others quickly retreated. Li Yuanping sat back on the main seat, thinking to himself, though he doesn't look like a Buddhist cultivator, he might be disguising himself. Maybe he's a devil cultivator. Our family has never encountered a devil cultivator from Jiangnan, but we've heard they look no different from ordinary people. We might not be able to recognize them. He took 2 steps down the stairs. After all, it was a Foundation establishment realm cultivator visiting. In the Li family, only he had enough weight to handle this, without risking too much loss if things went awry. This is not the time to show weakness. It would be bad if he became suspicious. I should go meet him. Li Yuanping mumbled to himself quietly as he walked to the front of the hall and stepped lightly toward the corridor. As he walked, he saw Li Wen following him, carrying a mace as big as a human head without saying a word. Seeing Li Wen's immense figure, Li Yuanping felt a bit more confident and smiled. What a sturdy fellow you are, he remarked. Hee, Li Wen chuckled in response. When Li Yuanping reached the side hall, he said gently, you do not need to come in, just wait outside. After all, the gap between Foundation establishment realm and Qi cultivation realm was too vast. According to Njayan's description, if Li Wen went in, it would only take 1 palm strike from the visitor to send him flying, which would make them seem weak. Seeing Li Wen nod dumbly, Li Yuanping pushed the door open and entered. The side courtyard was simple and unadorned, with only a few wooden tables. Sitting by one small table was a young man with an ordinary face and a Taoist crown on his head. A wooden sword rested on his knees, which appeared to be made of peach wood. He looked to be only about 20 years old, wearing a plain Taoist robe with golden embroidery on the cuffs of an unknown origin. The peach wood sword seemed ordinary and dull, not like any precious treasure. A Foundation establishment realm cultivator at 20 years old. Li Yuanping secretly assumed that this person must be using an illusion to disguise his appearance, becoming even more cautious. The Li family welcomes you, senior. May I ask how to address you? Li Yuanping stepped forward with a smile, speaking politely yet confidently. Greetings, family head. I am Wang Zun from Yinghua Prefecture in Zhao State. Thank you for your hospitality. Unexpectedly, the young cultivator reacted with great enthusiasm, jumping up from his seat almost right away. The peachwood sword on his knees flipped in the air and floated lightly. Wang Zun, seemingly unaware, had responded courteously. Seeing his response and demeanor, Li Yuanping felt slightly relieved. He glanced unobtrusively at the peachwood sword and smiled as he said, Oh, a guest from Zhao State. I am Li Yuanping. Apologies for keeping you waiting. No need for apologies. The man smiled in return. Seeing Li Yuanping not taking the main seat but instead choosing to sit to the side, Wang Zun's tense expression relaxed and he also sat down. Watching the young man's sincere reactions, Li Yuanping felt even more at ease and called out, Serve it. The attendants quickly brought the tea, placed it before them and left hurriedly. Li Yuanping smiled, observing the shy and bashful young man in front of him while still on guard. May I ask, senior, where do you come from? Is there anything you need? If my family can help, we will certainly do so. The young man seemed unaccustomed to worldly interactions and had not mentioned his background. Li Yuanping asked about his background to gauge if he belonged to a significant sect or family, which would inform his response. Still smiling courteously, he poured tea from a jade pot. The young man hesitated, nodding repeatedly, as though he had already expected to be asked about his family lineage. I come from the Wang family in Yinghua, a great-grandson of true monarch Xiaojun and the son of Taoist master Yingyuan. He replied hurriedly. Li Yuanping felt as if he had been slapped out of nowhere, and his head buzzed. His steady hand suddenly shook, spilling several drops of tea. True monarch Xiaojun, a golden core realm cultivator, he exclaimed. He looked up in shock and stammered, Senior, you say you are the great-grandson of a true monarch and the son of a Taoist master. Chapter 369, Wang Zun, I. As soon as Wang Zun had entered the Li family's territory, Lu Jiangxian, who was deeply engrossed in his studies, was immediately alerted. Lu Jiangxian had set up several nodes in his divine sense to alert him of the following matters. If a direct descendant of the Li family was about to die, if the aura of a purple mansion realm cultivator appeared, or if a member of the Li family broke through to the Foundation establishment realm. He himself was repeatedly delving into the memory fragments of Maha Jinlian from years ago, trying to find clues to the origin of the Golden Temple Radiant Origin Manual, or hints of the Purple Mansion realm records. Wang Zun's powerful sword Qi, shining like a great ball of light, instantly woke Lu Jiangxian, who looked at the young man with some confusion. He is not a Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao cultivator. Lu Jiangxian's divine sense hovered around Wang Zun, feeling that his fate was completely blank, likely protected by some extraordinary method to avoid worldly entanglements. Focusing once more, Lu Jiangxian saw a golden sword case appear on Wang Zun's broad back. It was intricately patterned, mostly with cloud motifs, totaling 128 in number. The case contained 16 sword slots, which was already holding 10 swords, all hidden within, their forms indiscernible. Divine ability, or fate. The sword case on Wang Zun's back was invisible to ordinary eyes but seemed extraordinary to him. Although it was clearly a divine ability, it was filled with the aura of fate. Lu Jiangxian, now quite experienced, observed for a while and made some deductions in his heart. The northern path of cultivation combines life and essence, consuming qi to seek essence and nourishing life with divine abilities. Difficult, truly difficult. Lu Jiangxian looked at the sword case for a couple of moments, cautiously refraining from probing it with his divine sense. After all, this was a descendant of a golden core realm cultivator, and such an act might have hidden dangers. After carefully observing the young man, Lu Jiangxian had a strong premonition that this was the most orthodox and original method of cultivation, one that cultivated both heart and essence, seeking truth and immortality. Directly pointing oneself to the path of the immortal. But if this is how cultivation is done, the difficulty is too great. Only 1 in 1,000 spiritual orifice children might be able to succeed, or less than that. If the Li family were to practice this method now, not a single one might succeed, and even producing a spark would be considered impressive. He mused in amazement. Lu Jiangxian gazed at the sword case, countless profound ideas flooding his mind, and could not help but praise and sigh. Life and essence dual cultivation, huh? Compared to this immortal method, the Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao was completely different. First, they nurtured the chakra and absorbed qi. After reaching the 9th heavenly layer of the qi cultivation realm, they discarded it to build the immortal foundation and cultivate divine abilities. After completing the divine abilities, they sought essence, even absorbing similar immortal foundations to enhance their cultivation. If Wang Zun's immortal Dao was like climbing a mountain with integrity, the Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao was like choosing the easiest path, destroying and plundering along the way, without the need for seeking truth in the heart, each step bringing its own power. No wonder the Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao is prevalent. They lower the threshold for cultivation so much. Lu Jiangxian mumbled. He stared at him for a while, gradually gaining some insight into the ancient battles between immortals and devils, and could not help but sigh softly. Seeing Li Yuanping lose his composure for the first time in years, Lu Jiangxian smiled lightly, sensing that Wang Zun had no malicious intent and even wished to avoid contact with the Li family to prevent entanglements, let alone harm them. It might even be a good thing. He smiled triumphantly to himself. Side courtyard at the foot of the mountain. Indeed, our true monarch is Xiaojun, one of the 3 gold in the state. Wang Zun explained as he nodded but eventually paused, realizing he might have said too much, then slowly continued. Fellow Taoist Yuanping, I am new to Jiangnan and unfamiliar with the southern customs. I have come with a request and do not intend to use my status to oppress. If I have offended in any way, please do not take it to heart. Not at all, not at all, Li Yuanping quickly exclaimed, and he still found the situation hard to believe and wished Wang Zun would say more. Seeing his sincere expression, Li Yuanping quickly responded and secretly began calculating, then asked, although our family is somewhat known in this area, we are small and insignificant. What brings you to visit us, senior? This is a long story. Wang Zun replied with a mysterious smile on his youthful face as he continued, "My Wang family does not cultivate the Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao of Jiangnan, but the ancient method of spiritual cultivation. This method has been lost in Jiangnan for a long time. If I were to explain it in detail, it might take 3 days and nights. According to the understanding of Taoist cultivation in Jiangnan, I need to cultivate the divine ability known as Nurturing Azure Heaven, which requires gathering 128 sword qi and 16 sword intents, forming a unique path to cultivate this divine ability." He paused as he picked up the jade cup and smiled, looking at Li Yuanping with anticipation, then continued eagerly, "My family has over 100 people who have cultivated sword qi. I have already gathered them, but sword intents are rare. The Wang family only has 2, and I must venture out to find the rest to complete my Dao. So I asked my father for advice, and he deduced that there are still 4 sword immortals and 2 spirit swords in Jiangnan that I could seek out." Hearing this, Li Yuanping roughly understood why Wang Zun had come. Wang Zun took a sip of tea and somewhat shyly said, "When I arrived at the lake, I secretly divined that your clan possesses a spirit sword, residing in Mount Lijing known as the Qingche." Placing the jade cup down, Wang Zun stood up solemnly and shook his sleeves as he stepped back. "I humbly ask the family head to lend me the sword for a look, so I may advance on my path. I would be immensely grateful." Wang Zun simply cupped his fist lightly and bowed his head without bending at the waist. Although his words were respectful, his demeanor seemed somewhat arrogant. Li Yuanping, thinking Wang Zun was of immortal lineage, found it not unusual. Wang Zun, looking embarrassed, quickly added, "My fate restricts me from bowing to serve others, lest it brings harm to you, family head. Please do not take offense." Li Yuanping, hearing this explanation for the first time, was suddenly enlightened and took note of it, replying that he dared not take offense. He then explained, "The Qingche sword is a treasured heirloom of our family, both a Dharma artifact and a ritual instrument. This is a serious matter. I must report it to the elders of the clan and let them decide. Please wait a moment." Of course, that is as it should be," Wang Zun exclaimed in understanding as he nodded repeatedly. With this, Li Yuanping stepped outside, whispering to Li Wen about the details and sending him up the mountain to report. Watching the strong man leave, Li Yuanping returned to the hall, his mind racing with thoughts. This person seems knowledgeable, speaking of things usually kept secret within sects. It would be wise to take this rare opportunity to learn more. After all, the knowledge from a true monarch's family is priceless. Before he could speak, Wang Zun eagerly continued, "Your clan is known for its swordsmanship and bears the surname Lei, residing by Moongaze Lake. Could you be related to Taoist Master Donghu of the Moonlight Origin Mansion?" Li Yuanping, unfamiliar with the name, replied, "No, our family descends from Ancestor Mushin, a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator. Our ancestral origins are untraceable, and we have never heard of such a Taoist master." Wang Zun nodded and smiled. The Taoist master's real name was Li Jiangquan, a sword master of great renown. His reputation even reached Yinghua Prefecture in Zhao State. He was a supreme cultivator of Moongaze Marsh in his time. "So that is the case," Li Yuanping mumbled, even deeper in thought. Privately, the direct descendants of the Li family had suspected this, but there was no evidence of it. Moreover, the karmic ties of Li Jiangquan were too significant. Being a small clan, the Li family preferred to avoid such connections rather than seek them out. At that moment, he decided to change the topic, probing the stance of this spiritual cultivation Dao. With a smile, he said, "I heard that the North has fallen to the Jai people and Buddhism cultivators. I did not expect to still find fellow Taoists like ourselves." Wang Zun paused and explained, "Although the Jai people have pushed north due to the dominance of Buddhism cultivation to their south, there are still many grotto heavens and blessed lands in the north where cultivators seclude themselves. Some small states are not under Buddhist rule. Moreover," he smiled awkwardly and continued, "the spiritual cultivation Dao waged war with your Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao 1,000 years ago. In the past century, although circumstances forced many alliances, we can hardly call each other fellow Taoists. I see, I have overstepped." Li Yuanping laughed it off as realization dawned upon him. Although he was quite curious about this spiritual cultivation Dao, he did not dare pry into another's Dao lineage. The young man before him was naive about worldly matters, not foolish. A few questions were enough. Wang Zun, feeling slightly guilty at Li Yuanping's apology, quickly added, "There is no inherent good or evil in Dao. It all lies in human actions. I am not one to judge based on Dao lineages. Last year, I visited Yue cultivating sect to ask for a sword from Senior Shangyuan and had a delightful conversation with him, Taoist Master Shangyuan." Li Yuanping responded, hearing a name he had only encountered in rumors. He then continued, "The Taoist master is said to be a sword immortal second only to Golden Core Realm cultivators, with unparalleled sword intent. Indeed, he is formidable." Wang Zun sighed, showing a serious expression for the first time as he praised, "His sword is astonishing. On one side, it is ethereal and transcendent, purging evil and vanquishing demons. On the other side, it is like cold snow in the vast sky, chilling to the bone. Even our true monarch has never seen someone with two such distinct sword intents in one body. Chapter 370, Wang Zun II. On the other side, Li Wen, having received his orders, silently flew up. The courtyard on the mountain was quiet, with Li Yunjiao standing motionless in black, his face somber. Xiao Giluan held his arm silently, her face also showing worry. She had recently broken through to the qi cultivation realm, her vitality-filled cultivation healing injuries and detoxifying poisons. Brother, Li Qinghang, holding a long spear, also wore a solemn expression. After a long silence, she said, "Though it is said so, leaving Brother Ping alone at the foot of the mountain makes me very uneasy. There is no other choice." Li Yunjiao muttered as he gritted his teeth and said quietly, "After all, there is no room for sentimental attachments now. I swore before our granduncle's spirit that you and I must not come to harm. Hand that spear over to me," Li Qinghang demanded glumly. Li Yunjiao was slightly stunned but still took out a jade box from his storage pouch, speaking softly, "I thought of this before coming and brought it along. Granduncle said this spear is fierce and unruly, damaging one's vitality and shortening one's lifespan. He never used it after acquiring it. He instructed that it should not be handed to you unless you reach the peak of qi cultivation realm, but if things truly turn dire, having this spear might give you a better chance of escape." He handed over the jade box and Li Qinghang quickly took it. Just then the courtyard door creaked open, and several external qi cultivators and guest cultivators hurried in, greeting in unison as they stepped into the courtyard. After greeting them, Li Qinghang gently opened the jade box, revealing a long spear lying inside. The spear was entirely silver-white, with a 7-kun-long, diamond-tipped head, flat like buckwheat. The shaft was 6 qi long and was intricately patterned, with mana light flowing through it. It was all one color, making it indistinguishable without close inspection. As soon as the box was opened, the spear, as if harboring years of pent-up anger, burst forth with a series of white, shimmering electric sparks, leaping out of the box instantly. However, Li Qinghang caught it single-handedly. Ha! Delicate purple energy swirled in her almond-shaped eyes. Li Qinghang grunted with joy, and with a flip of her hand, the long spear gradually calmed down, emanating streaks of purple lightning that lay obediently in her red-tinged white palm. And the spear's name. The spear bore no markings, as the maker had left no name on it. It would reveal its name only when it acknowledged its master, and Li Yunjiao had been curious for a long time. Seeing Li Qinghang tame the spear now, he eagerly asked his question out of deep curiosity. Li Qinghang's jade-like fingers opened, grasped, and turned. The spear spun like a beam of white light, swiftly moving from a horizontal position to an upright one. The long, flat tip pointed diagonally at the ground, and it hummed softly. "Its name is Duruo." Li Qinghang's voice was clear and bright, her eyes sparkling like stars. Dressed in jade armor and long boots, her already heroic attire combined with the spear gave her a breathtaking presence, capturing everyone's attention. Most of the family's qi cultivators were present. Tian Yaodou and Njayan, being the oldest, remained calm, while Tian Zhongqing and Su Gongming were momentarily stunned before quickly averting their gazes. Madame Du, dressed in a red dress, looked at her niece with envy. Good. Li Yunjiao could not help but praise, a hint of pride on his face. He did not have time to ponder why the spear had such a name, thinking to himself, Qinghang's equipment is probably on par with that of sect disciples. With this spear our family will surely gain renown. The Duruo spear was considered excellent among Foundation Establishment realm artifacts. The Li family had not seen many of such artifacts, but both the Qingch sword and this spear were clearly superior to the Jade Smoke Mountain of the Yu family. Li Yunjiao recomposed himself and coughed twice, making Tian Zhongqing and Su Gongming, who kept glancing at Li Qinghang, feel a bit embarrassed. He then said in a deep voice, "A Foundation Establishment realm external cultivator has arrived at our home and is waiting at the foot of the mountain. Coincidentally, the ancestor is away in the north seeking opportunities to break through to mid-stage Foundation Establishment realm." Their doubts were instantly dispelled. Tian Yaodou stroked his long beard and said in a grave voice, "I fear that this person might be a devil cultivator. If he goes mad, it could result in a bloodbath." Tian Zhongqing and Su Gongming exchanged a glance and suddenly realized why they had been called up the mountain. If that person was indeed a devil cultivator, only the sun-right profound light formation could hold him off to some extent. "Thank you for your protection, family head," Njayan quickly said, offering a word of flattery, though his expression was somewhat grim. After all, his wife and children were still at the foot of the mountain. His wife Li Feiruo had borne him 2 sons and a daughter, all with spiritual orifices, which was quite rare. Li Yunjiao shook his head slightly and said in assurance, "The clan affairs courtyard has already taken the direct descendants and their wives and daughters to the foot of the mountain." At these words, the group relaxed. Li Yuanping had been thorough in his preparations, easing a lot of the burden on Li Yunjiao. After all, they might need these people to guard the formation later, and it was better for them to have no distractions. Liu Changdi had left 8 high platforms when he established the Sun-Right Profound Light Formation, which could be used to reinforce the barrier. With 8 people present, they could fully activate the formation, making it difficult even for a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator to break through it. Li Wen was still at the foot of the mountain. As Li Yunjiao was thinking of this, someone descended into the courtyard with a gust of wind. The figure was large, holding a big mace with both hands, looking quite fierce. It was Li Wen. Li Wen landed, then bowed respectfully. Family head. After conveying Li Yuanping's message and explaining the situation, Li Yunjiao nodded slightly and waved his hand. Go to your designated formation points. The guest cultivators and external cultivators all nodded and dispersed. Li Qingheng assigned a formation point to Li Wen, then turned back and asked, "Brother, can we trust him?" "Probably," Li Yunjiao said as he squinted slightly. However, Li Qingheng was still wary and cautioned. "I am afraid Brother Ping might be under a spell." Li Yunjiao suddenly had an idea and replied, "Let us take a look and find out." He turned and entered the courtyard, soon returning with a small bluish-gray mirror. Li Qingheng immediately understood his intentions, and Li Yunjiao closed his eyes, focusing on the mountain. Sitting by a small table in the side courtyard was a young man in white, with a Taoist crown on his head and an ordinary face. His aura was calm and transparent under the mirror's gaze, even exuding a celestial air, and he was clearly not an evildoer. At that moment, Wang Zun was holding a jade cup, sipping tea. A peach wooden sword lay on his knees, and the cuffs of his Taoist robe were embroidered with golden patterns. He carried a sword case on his back that glimmered with a golden light, giving off a slightly ethereal quality. A sword case. Li Yunjiao voiced his doubt.